When I was 8, age 4 plus 4, baptism interview, Bishop shut the door.
Son, if you skate upon thin ice, then you'll hurt Jesus, and that's not nice. What I'm saying is, after you're baptized, don't ever touch yourself.
I look straight down to the floor. You mean I can't do that no more?
But, my dear boy, you're only 8. So let's make this clear. Don't obfuscate. Just how many times have you touched yourself before?
1 times 8 is 8. 2 times 8 is 16. 3 times 8 is 24. 4 times 8 is 32. And 5 times 8 is 40, you know.
Hang on, so you've done this about 40 times?
6 times 8 is 48. 7 times 8 is 56. 8 times 8 is 64. 9 times 8 is 72. And 10 times 8 is 80. That's true.
Oh, wait a minute. I was talking about when you eventually hit puberty, little
11
Randy.
times 8 is 88. 12 times 8 is 96. I just love to get off on these cool new tricks, cause 12 times 8 is the same as 10 times 8 plus 2 times 8. 80 plus 16 is 96.
I just hope you haven't done this with anyone else or with your pets. You haven't, have you?
1 times 8 is 8. 2 times 8 is 16. 3 times 8 is 24. 4 times 8 is 32. And 5 times 8 is 40, you know.
Oh, little Randy, you know, we've got some definite work to do.
Oh, Bishop dear, what does this mean? When I get dunked, will I still be clean? I didn't know that this was bad. It just felt great. It felt so rad. How could something that doesn't hurt anyone at all and feels so good hurt Jesus and be so bad?
I've often wondered that very thing myself. Oops, I did it again.
Hey, Bishop, maybe this is what makes those heavenly gates so pearly.
That's enough.
This is Infants on Thrones. The philosophies of men mingled with humor. We are the Quorum.
Do people just not think about what to post? Like, if I rank all the infants by attractiveness, somebody's going to be on the bottom of the list, which is saying, you know, you're an ugly motherfucker. Like that's a terrible thing to do.
Yeah, well,
But
I think they feel them. You think it's a she?
I don't know.
I don't know. I'm guessing. I'm just assuming.
Did that derail your entire thought?
What, the fact that she's a she?
Well, Glenn, you were about to say something, and then
I was. I don't know. I'm like wondering if you're eating peanut butter on toast, because it kind of sounds like peanut butter on toast.
It was close. It's homemade pizza, so it's very huge crust. Mostly crust, actually.
Okay.
So, sorry. I'll be done.
So I think it's just the three of us. And what were you, Jake? You were in 8.6, and Matt was in 8.5?
No, it's 8.26 for Jake.
Oh, okay. That's precise.
8.25 for me.
Yeah. I think I was a 6.25.
Yes, but then they go, you're a 6.5.
Oh, I'm a 6.5?
You're number 3.
Yeah.
You're 6.5.
No, I'm number 3 of the guys, because they gave Heather a score just above Jake. 8.27.
Right. So she
Yeah, that doesn't count.
Yeah. Counts.
But then she goes, she goes, 6.5, 6.25, 6.10. And then for Scott, she's like, well, let's just drop all the way down to 4.8.
Right. 4.8. Like, Jesus.
Dicky.
It's even worse than just ranking like straight, 1 to 9 or 1 to 8.
Yeah, welcome to what it's like being a woman every single day of your life. Welcome to that, guys. Being objectified by your looks on some subjective standard of value. Now you know how it feels.
Oh man, that's tough.
Today's episode was brought to you
being
by the letter F.
When you're considered attractive.
Yeah, I guess it's being. If you're attractive, I guess it's pretty good.
Even women who are attractive don't like being evaluated based on their looks. Like, that's the first thing. People are like, oh yeah, they give it 8.5.
Well,
you should be flattered by that. You should be flattered by that. You're like an 8.
I think some women like that.
No,
well, I'm just trying to find the women that do. I do that, and then if they don't, then now I know. You know, they're one of the weird ones.
I don't know.
Shall we start this podcast with the national anthem?
Yeah, I'll be sitting for that.
Yeah.
Oh no, you didn't.
All right, shall we get in this?
All right, let's do this because this is going to be.
So I think we're going to have to take turns on the roles because, like, I really want to be the bishop, but I know that everybody wants to be the bishop.
Right.
I want you to be the bishop. I don't want to be the bishop necessarily.
So do you want to have a role? Because there's only two people. There's the bishop and the parent. And so we could take turns with how we do it, or kind of do it the way that we did the John DeLynn excommunication thing.
There was a boy,
Hi, this is John DeLynn.
a very strange, hard to put your finger on boy.
And I am a douchebag.
Minus the musical. We don't have music with this.
Not yet.
Yeah, neither did we for the.
No, John. But
musical.
John like prepared a little thing. There were a couple times where we sang. So let's set the stage for this.
You read the blog post by the mother of this kid? Did you read the first part of that in the transcript?
Yeah.
Yeah, and she sets the stage, I think, pretty well.
All right. You want to read it?
Sure. So this was posted on August 23rd, 2013. Absurd 8-year-old baptism.
So we are right on top of this.
Yeah, we're timely.
Yeah.
Right. All right. 2013.
That was over 3 years ago.
Somebody posted this, just posted a link to it, and I clicked on it, listened to it, and I was never heard it before, was blown away by it, and then shared it with y'all, and then we've...
See, it didn't annoy you that it was an old thing that they were posting?
Shut up, Glenn. Shut up. It did a little bit. I'll be honest.
Shut up, Richard.
Shut up, Richard.
Your brain has the shell on it. Are you talking? Shut up, Richard.
But I saw that it was 2013. I was like, oh, I thought it was more relevant than that, but whatever. But it's new to me. So, yeah. And my complaint about that other one was not only was it not new, it was not new to me.
Yeah.
The primary president stopped by my house to give me the information I needed for my son's baptism. Included in the paper she gave me was a list of questions the bishop planned on asking my son in his baptism interview. One of the questions included asking if he touches himself. Before I even had a chance to look at the question, the primary president told me about the touching himself question and told me that if I talk to the bishop, then maybe he will skip that question. I said, okay, thank you, and she left. So the following Sunday, I stopped the bishop in the hall, and was going to ask him the simple question, but he pulled me into his office and closed the door. Just picturing, dear Penthouse Forum.
Wow, chicka wow.
I don't get it. What is that?
Do you touch yourselves?
I don't know.
I don't understand what you guys are talking about.
Penthouse Forum letters?
What? That's like the top floor in a hotel, right? Where that's the really wealthy.
Forum. It's like a lobby of a penthouse. Yes, the Forum.
The Forum. Okay.
Then, when I asked him nicely to not ask the question, he raised his voice and said, "No, I will ask your son that question." He then asked me if I questioned his authority as my bishop.
That almost sounded like Lucifer from the temple.
If thou cursest me for doing the same thing which has been done in other worlds.
Yeah, it felt like that.
You kind of were doing it.
Yeah.
Okay.
then went on and on for about 10 minutes about why he had to ask that question. I was shocked and surprised at his reaction. I told him the primary president told me to talk to him I told him the primary president told me to talk to him that maybe he wouldn't mind skipping the question. He pretty much called me a liar. Said that the primary president would never say that. Later, I found out that she asked him not to ask that question to her kid, but he was insistent, so that's why he thought that I was lying. I was so upset by the time I was able to leave his office that I was holding back tears because of the way he was speaking to me. Had to leave church early. So my husband made an appointment with the bishop. Read the next post for the complete transcription of that hour-long meeting.
Yeah, so there's a recording of it, and you can actually hear it, and we may intersperse some of the actual recording, but we thought it'd be fun to read the script like we did the John DeLynn excommunication thing. So that's what we'll do from here. But
and we should show a little, play just a segment of it, because to really appreciate the douchery of this guy, do have to hear his voice and his tone and the whole inflection and everything.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, I agree. But before we get into that, just a few questions about this whole setup here. And first, your experiences being interviewed as a kid in the church, did you ever have bishops ask you about touching yourself?
No, not until my mission. And I've told the story before, but before my mission interview was the first time I'd ever been asked by a bishop anything about masturbation.
What'd you tell him?
Well, the way he asked it was, when was the last time you masturbated? And I said, don't I even get a do you? And he smiled. But my bishop was a pretty cool, kind of liberal-ish high school teacher. So he wasn't naive. He wasn't a jerk. He certainly wasn't authoritarian. He was as good of a guy as I could have hoped for as a bishop. So yeah, so I told him the truth.
When had been the last time?
10 minutes before.
Like 3. I'm doing it right now, Bishop.
Hands out of the pocket.
Yeah.
How about you, Jake?
Yeah, I think.
No. I mean, when was the last time? I'm kidding.
Then we do this pantsless, right?
Yeah.
I'm not the only one doing
it.
Right.
Yeah, we've all been doing that for,
In a way, podcasting is masturbation. So, I think I did get it and got that question. I think when I was in Teachers Quorum, when I was a priest or something like that. I think that's when they started coming up, when it was.
And you are younger.
15, yeah. So that maybe that's why, it's because it's this idea of it's all connected to porn, to like
internet pornography,
scare, internet pornography and all that. So it's they've been exposed to nudie pics, so of course,
right?
It's relevant now. But I didn't realize that the age was going to be moving back. Continue to move back.
Yeah.
What about you, Glenn?
I have no memory of ever being asked that question. I sought out a bishop when I was 18 to confess, but it was an unsolicited confession, and he just acted like it was no big deal. It was kind of like how this guy pretends that he wants to get a temple recommend interview, and that's why he sets up the meeting, and then he's like, well, actually, Bishop, that's not why I'm here. I set up my meeting to talk about my patriarchal blessing, and then I'm like, well, actually, that's not why I'm here. And he said, well, I think you should get your patriarchal blessing anyway. I'm like, don't I need to go through a repentance process? He just treated it like it was no big deal. And so I didn't stop.
He's like, you just did.
So I'm like, all right, Bishop says it's okay.
Bishop endorsed.
Bishop endorsed. No, I still felt guilty about it, but it caused more confusion probably for me. And then, if you're in this position where you find out, Matt and I both have had kids that have been baptized. I know you're never going to have to face that, Jake. But how would you feel about a bishop asking your 8-year-old son or daughter a question like this?
You're asking me?
Either of you.
Not good. Pray.
Not good. Pray.
Read your scriptures.
Read your scriptures? Yeah, it's not one of those questions. I don't know. Okay.
Well, we locked it down when our kids were getting to that age. We just had a conversation, so that's just not going to be a topic.
With your bishop?
Yeah.
Really? Why?
Uh-huh. Why? Because I didn't trust his ability to cover it correctly or accurate, correctly, accurately, or right, Glenn. That's a 3 pattern.
Correctly, accurately, or right. Yeah.
I'm glad you had both correctly and right.
Yeah. And appropriately, yeah.
And appropriately, yeah.
Those are all distinctions with a significant difference.
And a big piece of it was we were teaching our kids different principles when it came to certainly masturbation.
Yeah.
So we were teaching them it was healthy, it was normal, it was something you do in private, and it's not something to be ashamed of. So that certainly ran counter to what I expected, or at least was concerned that the bishop would cover.
So if you ran into a bishop like this who was like adamant that he was, like he basically gives this parent, he's like, I'm going to ask that question. Your only other alternative is to not have your son get baptized. And if that's what you want to do, fine. But what if he dies in a car accident?
Yeah.
Sorry to ruin the best part of the whole thing.
Yeah, right.
That's like my favorite part.
That's so
my favorite part. But like personally, I wouldn't really care that much. Like if I was going to have my kid get baptized anyway, and the bishop's like, I'm going to ask this question, and the way that he asked it, I'd be like, all right. I don't know. I don't know what the harm is in asking that question, as long as I'm talking to my kids afterwards and saying, so what was that? What did he ask? Did you understand it? And just use it as a discussion opportunity. But yeah, so I don't know.
Well, yeah, I think I understand what you're saying. I mean, when I read through the transcript and listened to the interview or the recording, I didn't necessarily agree with the parents' reservations. I mean, it's their child, so they, it's their thing. But the parents' reservations were this child isn't ready to talk about sex.
Yeah,
yeah.
Which isn't necessarily something that I think. Well, maybe I don't necessarily think it's inappropriate for an 8-year-old to know about sex or know at least something about it.
Yeah.
See, to me, the bishop actually, given the topic, I think he does it. He is trying to be somewhat delicate, and it didn't seem that they were too far off on what they should be talking about. So there are certain areas that I give the bishop more of a pass than others. My biggest complaint, and I think what this really highlights, is just authoritarianism when it comes to bishops and his view as to what the role of a bishop is, and his approach to other members of his ward. To me, it highlights that problem more than simply the masturbation thing. And the masturbation thing, I think people jump on because it is what it is. But I actually give the bishop a pass on the topic and the way he wants to cover it. Even though it could be, I think there's things that could be done better, and certainly not ideal. But I certainly didn't have as much of a quarrel with how he was, what he was asking and how he was proposing to do it, as I did just his approach generally and his tone to people.
Yeah, and that's what jumped out to me when I read this too, was that it's not so much the outrage of, oh my gosh, a bishop's going to ask an 8-year-old if he touches himself. It's the way that this bishop. What's the term for it? Unrighteous dominion. It just feels like I think there's several times where he lies in here, and I'll talk about it when we get to it. He's definitely disingenuous, and like always passing the buck and not taking responsibility for things, but like expecting and demanding that he's just obeyed and he's not questioned, and especially not by a woman. Right. Especially not by this guy's wife, But it also kind of, like, I listened to this a little bit with Krista until Krista's like, "Turn it off! I can't stand this." and her first comment about the guy who was the parent that was recording it, she's like, "He's a wimp."
Yeah.
Like he needs
is.
to stand up for himself. And I'm like, well, but he's also recording this, which takes a lot of courage to take a recorder in there and do that. So he's probably trying to get the bishop to talk more than he's talking and being a little more conciliatory than maybe he normally would be because he knows he's recording it. But I also got that sense, like that's not how I would conduct myself in a
right.
But,
I did have an incident where, and I'm trying to remember the specific context, and I just asked Kristen what the context was, and she doesn't entirely remember. But at one point, I did go and talk to the bishop, and it might have been on this topic. I don't remember specifically, but I had a conversation with the bishop where he something will happen with my family or with the kids, and he did say, "Well, I am the ecclesiastical leader of your family." And so he was kind of saying that, but keep in mind, my bishop is a super nice guy. I've known him for a lot of years. He's not assertive like this. He's not. I mean, he's just kind of a farmer that's doing the best he can. And I did stop him, and I smiled and said, I do hear what you're saying, but let me say something very clearly, and I'm going to be very direct. The day that you feel that you can act on that will be a very, very bad day. And I just encourage you not to try to assert yourself in that role when it comes to my family, because you and I will have real problems. Yeah. So I kind of left it at that and was trying to be nice, but I do feel that I've experienced, at least to a degree, this attitude of a bishop saying, but I'm the bishop.
Yeah. And I think this is one of the things, like, it's kind of a dangerous thing for me to say. I hesitate in saying it because I'm bringing up feminism. That when you talk about the women in the church that always have to defer to a man and to authority figure, that's absolutely true. I'm not saying anything contrary to that. But men also have to do that to a smaller degree. And I know it's not the same, it's not equivalent. But I think this is a case where you can hear this guy who's talking to the bishop is taking a position of deference, and he doesn't really feel like he can be as strong and opinionated and assertive with the bishop as the bishop feels like he can be to him. So there's absolutely a hierarchy going on in the way that they're just discussing this, and it's frustrating.
And I don't think that acknowledging that, invalidates the feminist argument at all, because, when they say patriarchy hurts everybody, I think this is also an example of that. It's not just the asymmetry between the genders; it's also the asymmetry that comes among just every individual in the group as you set up this segregated hierarchy of authority.
Yeah, but let me mansplain this to you. Actually, guys, this highlights just how bad the misogyny is, because the woman couldn't even approach this guy to have this conversation. It had to be the man who did this.
Right.
So I agree with everything you're saying, but there is that element that, and you'll hear it in this as we go through it, the fact that the bishop or the father in this case, or the husband, had to be the one to take the complaint to the bishop, because there's no way that the bishop would have even given audience to his wife.
Except we just read that he did give audience to the wife and talked to her for at least 10 or 15 minutes.
He talked at her for 10 minutes, but he didn't sit down like this. I mean, at least I think that this is in his mind, this is equivalent to like an equitable conversation. I sat down with him man to man, and we had a conversation about it. I mean, she got a lecture and kicked out, basically.
I would have loved to hear the differences if the wife would have come in, and I just suspect that there would not have been as much respect or as much kind of he wouldn't have been as delicate or as diplomatic if the wife was coming in and questioning him, and I think we see that.
Yeah, I disagree with you. I think he would have been just the same, because all he's doing is placating his minions, and I don't think that I can tell that there is definitely a gender bias. He has a gender bias, and I can tell that, but I don't think that he would have really done anything differently if the wife had been sitting there next to this guy while this is being recorded. But I don't know. That's
Yeah.
who knows?
Yeah.
I think he's just disingenuous anyway.
But yeah.
Well, if the wife had been there, that's one thing. But if the wife had been here, he'd still only be addressing the husband. If it was just the wife in the office,
sure, but she didn't take in a recording device, so we didn't get to hear the 15 minutes or so when she was talking with him. We don't know what his tone was like. We don't know if they were sitting down talking with each other. We don't know what she was like.
She says he raised his voice, and we don't. But you're right. We don't know what her approach was and all those things. But I can hear that. I know people, Glenn. I know this man. I can hear.
Yeah, but remember, you can't put the values of 2016. You can't superimpose those over 2013. This is 2013. This is 3 years ago. We're talking about Matt. So let's learn that one lesson.
Right.
All right.
Have a seat. Thanks. So, I also understand you recognize me. Right. Okay.
But I didn't come here for that, though.
Oh, okay.
I came by to kind of straighten out what happened last week. I guess you talked about. I was kind of upset by some of the things that you said about it.
Okay.
So I wanted to go over the things you said with you.
Okay.
To see if we have it. We're on the same page, or it just kind of bothers me that we have to teach our kid about sexual things, about touching himself. I don't think he's ready for it, and I think if we bring it up now, it's going to bring up curiosity, because he knows nothing about it right now, and I don't want to bring that stuff up to him yet. I'm not ready for it, and I don't think he is.
Okay, so I sense that you're not ready for that, and you're saying that he's not ready for that.
Right.
I love how he was able to sense it.
Yeah,
because it's exactly what he said. He just sensed it with my ears.
Well, but what he's saying right here,
he's the worst Jedi ever.
No. He's saying you're saying that your son's not ready for it, but what you really mean is that you're not ready for it.
Yeah,
that's what the bishop's saying.
Okay, I sense that you're not ready for that, and you're saying that he's not ready for it. Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
but I'm telling you he's ready for it, is what that's...
Right. The bishop's like, okay, I'm the steward here. I'm the one with the gift of discernment, and so I'm discerning that you're really not ready for your son to have this conversation, and you think that he's not ready for it.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what the parent already said. He says,
"No,
the parent." He said, "I'm not ready for it yet, and I don't think he is."
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And the bishop's telling you, "I understand you don't think he is. I'm here to tell you, you're wrong."
Yeah, and so like this is where like that whole idea of respect is so bullshit because, when you listen to the way that they're talking to each other, they're like tiptoeing and using polite language and friendly stuff, but they're really at each other's throats and they don't respect each other's positions at all, and they're trying to go through this ruse of it's really fun. Anyway,
well, I don't think the bishop is intending to offend. I don't think that's his intent. I'm sorry. He says that a few times.
Oh yeah. Right.
So right.
Okay. I appreciate your point of view.
So like right here, the bishop is practicing his restating skills that he's been taught when they do like the bishop training meetings and stuff like that. Like you sit and you listen and say, I appreciate your point of view. I appreciate your concern as a parent, and it is your right. You will be held accountable for what you've taught or not taught.
I appreciate your concern as your parents, and it is your right to teach your parents as you'll be held accountable for what he's taught or not taught.
Right there, just out of the gate.
Right.
My role as the bishop is to perform the interview. I'm not the one who makes up the questions.
Let's asterisk that one for a minute. Okay, we'll come back to that, whether he's the one that makes up the questions or not.
I'm not the one who says what is going to be left off an interview or put in an interview. I'm the one who's given the guidelines of what I have to say, but I'm given some leeway on how to say that.
So I am the one who gets to ask the question.
Yeah.
So right there, he tells you it's double speed.
Yeah.
Do you have the printout of what I do with the interview?
I see. I read that.
What part of that is your concern?
That you would bring up to him about Well, other people seeing his private parts, him showing it to other people, or him touching himself.
You know,
I know
that's not exactly how it's worded.
That's not in here, but did you say that with what you were going to say?
Yes,
okay.
I did.
Wait, sorry. So again, that's not in there, but you said you were going to say that. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm going to say that, but that's not on the paper.
Yeah.
And how I say that, and if you'd like me to find it in there, or I can find it online and reprint it.
Okay, I have it right here.
Okay.
Just that we keep it private. Okay.
So you can either read it to me, or I can read it back. But that's
I read it. The part of the swimming part.
Before she came, she had not read that.
Yeah, we just got this the day before, so we hadn't read over the whole thing.
Right.
Okay.
And so how she approached me was, Bishop, you will not ask this question. And my stance was, well, I'm the bishop. I have a calling, and I've been set apart and sustained as the bishop. And I'm not the one who chooses to do the things. Personally,
I would not want to discuss any of that with anybody. But that's not my job. That's not my decision.
Okay, Glenn is already just way too kind
in
his approach here. But the bishop says that,
I don't feel like I'm being kind.
Oh, but
you are. You are. You're way softer than he is. I mean, he's coming in hard.
You're less smug because his delivery of, well, I'm the bishop. That's how he says it with the smugness of just, how dare you? I'm the bishop. It's with just this incredulity.
Yeah, but I like what I read into when I was listening to him say that, and we'll play snippets of this so listeners can hear him and come to their own conclusion. But I felt like he wants them to know that he's the bishop and should not be questioned without having to say that. He doesn't want to have to say that to him, so he uses like code words like I'm the bishop, and he expects that they understand that means that he has the final authority over him. Or he's like, I've been giving a calling. You know, and it is this like double speak. It's speech acts to try and put them in their position, and you know he's the one. He's the guy. He's unquestioned. Yeah, he cannot be questioned anyway.
But that's what I mean. I think the way that Matt described him saying that, that's what he was conveying. I'm the bishop. Like, how could you question?
Yeah,
like I have the final authority. I mean, the audacity that some woman's going to come up to me and tell me I'm not going to ask a question in an interview. I mean, I'm not the one that makes. I mean, I did make up the questions, but I didn't make up the guidelines.
Yeah. Well, maybe I am being nice. Maybe I'll read it with more.
I'd go smug. Yeah, okay. I just dial up your smugness. You know how.
Yeah, I'm taking your notes.
Jake, you're back in on parent.
Okay.
Or are we alternating? Or I got to say, Glenn, I was expecting more from you. Maybe we shift the bishop role around now.
Okay, I'm only like 6.5 on the bishop on the bishop scale. You'll both do better.
Let's get an 8 in here, okay?
Let's pull it.
Your bishop. Do you feel that she was questioning your authority because she asked that question?
It's the way she presented it
to me. Bishop, you will not ask my son that question. I'm sorry, but you can't tell me the questions I have. I pulled out the paper. And if she has a problem with me, I would prefer she come in and discuss it with me because, first of all, my intent is not to offend anyone or to make anyone feel bad. But here are the actual questions that I am supposed to ask. The law of chastity, which prohibits any sexual activity outside the bonds of legal marriage between a man and a woman. Have you been taught that? Or excuse me, you've been taught that membership in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints includes living gospel standards. Do you understand the following standards, and are you willing to obey them? That's the question I have to ask. Now, an 8-year-old, will he understand what the word sexual means? Will he understand what the word relationship outside the bonds of marriage means? Will he understand what between a man and a woman means? No, he won't. So my way that I have asked state president, is it okay if I do it this way to cover this? And they have said, yes, you may ask. Most children have not been exposed, okay? So that's my explanation. So what I ask is, when you go swimming, why do you wear a swimming suit?
By the way, he loves his swimsuit analogy.
Yeah. He's like, I nailed this.
I'm so good.
Yeah. No one had ever thought of that before him.
Yes.
Now, a child, boy or girl, can very innocently say, well, we wear swimsuits to cover ourselves. That is correct. We wear swimming suits to cover our private parts. We do not show our private parts. We do not touch our private parts. We do not allow others to see or touch our private parts. Are you willing to obey that as part of the law of chastity?
I mean, I don't necessarily disagree that it's a bad conversation to have with an 8-year-old about, like, our private parts are, private and no one should be able to touch them without your permission, whatever, like that type of thing. Yeah. I mean, generally, I don't think he's totally out of left field, but it's also kind of weird when he talks about, well, are they going to know what sexual means? Are they going to know what relationship outside the bonds of marriage means? Well, if they don't know, then that's your answer, right? I mean, that's the... Right. It'll be. I mean, it's like. Is he applying it to all the standards? Is he like, okay, no illegal drugs? So this is a doobie. Do not smoke one of these. Sometimes people crush pills up, snort them in their nose. Do not do that. Like, is he going through all the aspects of all of the commandments to explain all the implications of them?
No, he is not.
Shut up, Richard.
Well, and the thing that kept coming back to me when he's justifying asking the question, like later on he goes to talk about, oh, well, what if the kids have been abused and they haven't been able to talk to anybody, and this is the interview where it comes out. I'm like, that's not the purpose of what he's doing. Right. The purpose of a baptismal interview for anybody is, are they worthy to receive baptism? And with an 8-year-old kid who hasn't even been able to sin ostensibly up to that point, there's it's an empty ritual. I mean, it's like sitting down having this interview. What are you're gonna tell the kids? Okay, go back and do more reading, and then you'll be worthy. Like what?
Right.
It's just a stupid hoop to jump through, and so he's like mixing up his responsibility. You just like what you do is you tell them good job, you make them feel good about themselves, and that they're making this promise to Jesus, and blah 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 blah. But you don't have to take it so seriously that this kid might be harboring some horrible sin, and it's my responsibility to uncover it if it's there. No, it's not. It's not. Right. And it's not the bishop's responsibility to tell them that they shouldn't touch themselves, or that's the parents. The parents explain all that stuff about bathing suit and no touch zones and stuff. Not a stranger, not the bishop.
Right. And does he really think that there's somebody out there who's like, man, if my bishop had just told me and been more clear, told me more in my baptismal interview when I was baptized at 8, I wouldn't have fallen away from the church when I was 25 or 18 or something like that.
He says that later. He talks about people with addiction problems that started when they were 8, 9, and 10 years old. So I think he really does believe that.
Yeah, he's the shepherd of the ward flock, and he has to look and see everything that's going on and protect them from any potential danger that's out there. That's the job that God gave him to do, Jake. God. And you think he's not going to do it? You think he's not going to take it seriously? He's seen people who don't take their roles seriously. He's not going to be one of those people. He's not going to stand across from Jesus at the judgment bar and have Jesus say, you should have done a better job, Bishop. He's not going to be that guy.
Them what they do or don't teach. All right,
Jake, you're the parent.
He's not going to know.
He's not going to know what that means about touching his private parts.
Okay.
That's going to bring up a lot of questions.
I understand that, but in today's society, we have members who work for the church who have just now been caught and being convicted of molesting children.
Sorry, buddy, that's been going around for a long time. But I understand you think it just happened today.
Right. We have kids whose parents molest them. We have neighbor kids who molest neighbor kids. What you're asking me not to do is to ask a question that's part of the baptismal interview that would allow for an opportunity for him to understand something that has happened to him if it ever has.
Okay, so this is what you're talking about.
This is exactly what I'm talking about. Like, that's not
right.
part of the baptismal interview. That's not that. So like, let's take that a step further. What if the kid has been abused? Does that mean he's not worthy to receive baptism?
Nope.
Is that a sin that's going to be washed away in the waters of baptism?
Not a sin, right?
No. You know, I mean, it's a witch hunt that doesn't have anything to do with whether or not there's really witches.
But it's not really. This is. I'd like to know what this guy's living in, because he is. What he's doing instead is creating arguments and rebuttals. So this, as you said, this has nothing to do with it. But in his mind, he's like, well, I've got to come up with some justification for why I have to ask it, and this is one he's jumped to. So this also shows his unrighteous dominion, because he's coming up with unrelated arguments to why he has to ask why this kid's touching himself.
Right. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's kind of in the moment ad hoc rationalization, but this is surprising to me, because it's not as if the questions were in there and now he's going to now he's saying, "Oh shit, how do I explain why I'm doing this?" He put the questions in there. I mean, he's creating these questions without having thought through why he's doing it. It's just like, at what level is he compelled to ask these questions in the first place if it's not even at the point where, if it's not thought through enough where he even has a decent explanation or consistent explanation for why he's doing it?
But don't you think that there are a lot of people in the church, and I think I fell into this as well, that develop a savior complex where, you know, because many are called or few and chosen, and because where much is given, much is required, that, you know, we have an obligation to save the sick world, and always talk about all of the horrible things that are going on in the world, and the worth of a soul is great. So how much better will be your reward if you bring multiple souls? There's just so many parts of Mormon culture that create this sense of, you know, like savior mentality. I'm going to save people. And I just feel like this bishop has taken it to the extreme, and even to the point of, I'm going to save these people from themselves, because what comes out even later is that he thinks that this parent, that both of these parents are really lazy and they're doing their kids a disservice, and that's not going to happen on his watch. You know, like other bishops may allow parents to mess up their kids, but this bishop's not going to do it. This bishop's going to make sure that the kid gets the education, the sex education that he needs, even if the parents are too wimpy to teach him.
But all of those explanations come from a common cause or common phenomenon of seeing these kids that, you know, these 10-year-old kids that are exposed to pornography and start masturbating or whatever. Like they only exist in stories, but it's a consistent narrative. Like even the savior complex or this trying to make up for the shortcomings of the parents, all of them are oriented toward this particular phenomenon of the kids being exposed to pornography and masturbating themselves. This whole molestation angle is completely irrelevant, and I don't even understand why his mind even went there.
Well, I think Matt explained it. You know, he's got to justify why in this.
But he already has a justification, which is
he's piling on.
Kids are seeing nudie pictures and stuff.
He's piling on. He's given this parent no reasonable reason to object.
Okay, so it's just one more, just stacking the decks. Okay, all right, that makes more sense. All right.
My worry is that it will bring up curiosity and possibly experimentation, especially when he asks you what you mean by that. He'll say, "Of course I touch myself. When I go to the bathroom, I have to touch myself."
That's right. All of us boys do. Now, your job as a dad and your wife's job as the mom is to teach so that when the natural tendencies come, they know it is wrong and they don't do it. Come to church next week, because I have been instructed by the state president to give a whole hour lesson on this subject, because we have 8-year-olds that have come to the attention of the stake president who are hardcore pornography viewers.
Hardcore pornography viewers.
Hardcore.
Not just this soft stuff. Right. It's not just Victoria's Secrets and Sears catalogs anymore.
Yeah, no, it's P&V.
Yeah.
I grew up in Layton, where the neighbor kid will introduce pornography and this to the neighbor kid some 30 years ago. And our friend's son were one of those who were impacted by that neighbor's actions. So my point is, you cannot shelter your children. If you choose not to teach them, that's your choice. But I'm telling you as a bishop, and from what I've had to sit and hear from this side of the desk, and from talking with the other bishops in our stake, and the bishops when I go to the big meetings, you are making a mistake if you do not at least start teaching some aspect of that by the time they're 8 years old. And sometimes it needs to be 5 and 6 years old.
Because they're just softcore pornography at 5 and 6. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, some 5-year-olds are still sucking on a tit. And
right. That's basically just as bad.
I probably shouldn't put that in, should I? Sucking on a tit. Yeah.
Sucking on a tit.
This is the part where we make it a musical.
Musical. 5 years old. Sucking on a tit.
So, I mean, I don't know what your wife told you, but she misrepresented what she was told by the primary president, what she told me. Because I went to the primary president and said, what did you say? So, right now, I have a concern. And so I'm sharing back with you my concern, that misrepresentation that occurred.
Okay. So right now he's calling his wife a liar. Right. Because the wife said, the primary president told me to ask you if you could not teach that question. He thinks that that's a lie.
So, but I don't understand what the purpose of that, like calling out that misrepresentation. So if the misrepresentation was her saying, the primary president said that I could ask you not to ask this question, why is it important that he set the record straight? Why doesn't he just say, why not just leave it at, I'm going to ask the question anyway? I'm the bishop.
Because I think he's denigrating the wife to justify his dismissiveness of her.
So
she's dishonest.
Then that's why he was.
And that this guy who's sitting across from the bishop, he doesn't know the whole truth. He doesn't know the whole truth because his wife is not a reliable conveyor of information. She doesn't remember things right. She doesn't give the right message. She misrepresents what she heard from the,
Yeah, but that doesn't.
Whatever.
But setting this record straight, fixing this mischaracterization or misconception does nothing to actually alleviate the concerns for which the parent came in the first place. Because the concerns are you going to ask this question? Yes, I'm going to ask the question. Well, this is my concern. But now he's going back and being like, well, the idea that you could even ask me whether or not I'm going to ask that question is based on a mischaracterization. Like it's irrelevant to the actual disagreement at hand.
You're right.
So it just seems weird that he would loop back to take a shit on the guy's wife when it's unnecessary.
Well, and I agree, but he's not. He's just talking. He's not really thinking through everything and how things connect to each other. It's not like he's writing an essay and going back and reading it and editing it. You know, he's in that moment. It's uncomfortable. It's tense. Mm-hmm. He's having to assert his authority as bishop, and so this is an easy way to do it by saying, I don't know what your wife told you, but she probably didn't tell you the truth because she, just from what I know of her, she misrepresented that other story. So, that's a whole nother thing. But that's how he wraps up what he's saying. And the parent's like, okay. But he doesn't have anything to say about that either. So the bishop goes on. He says,
I will not ask the question if you choose not to have him come in to be baptized for the interview. That's your choice. But if he does come in, I will ask, why do we wear swimsuits? Are you willing not to show your private parts? And the reason I'm asking that is because even at 8, Satan is working his hardest to influence kids. And you cannot shelter the kids enough in your home that prevents every evil influence that can get to a child from getting to that child. Be it a radio, be it a television, be it even commercials for kids' cartoons. They have sexual innuendos in those that we don't recognize unless you actually sit down and analyze what's happening.
Like the poster for Aladdin. There's a big old penis in the poster for Aladdin.
And they rub it. And a magical cloud comes out.
Oh,
Think
my
about
gosh, jeez. Kids in their cartoons. What is society coming to?
Oh, those perverts.
We should have never gave the devil crayons.
So I'm coming back forcefully because I've been on this side of the table when I've got people confessing problems. I've been on this side of the table, not this actual table, but talking to a bishop who says, I have a child who's been masturbating since he was 9 years old, did not know what it was, and now I can't get him to repent and change because he didn't know at the time it was wrong, and the parents never knew what was happening. And now he can't go on a mission because he can't break that habit. So when you sit here and tell me these are all the emotions that I'm going through because I have other experiences, and your family may be perfect. You may never have a problem with any of this. And I hope your kids never do have molestation, see pornography in any form, or have those feelings and intents that Satan will put in a kid's heart. I hope that you guys are immune from that. But that's where I'm coming from. And if I don't carry out my duty, I'm going to be held responsible. Just as you, as parents, are going to be held responsible if your children are not taught. You're taking care of your side. I have to take care of my side.
So this is the point when the parent needs to I mean, I don't want to throw this guy under the bus because, like you said, he's doing the recording and good for him, and it would be awkward to be in this situation. But I can't believe that this isn't the point when he starts chewing this freaking guy out.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's personality from what I can hear, but he also wanted this guy to bury himself with his own words. And so just keep your responses short.
Right. And this is what happens when you have a lay clergy that has no training, that has no real background for being able to handle being in the position that they're in. Because think about the bishop most of the time interacts with people that are having a terrible time. And they do hear like all kind. I mean, people unburden all kinds of things to the bishop. Yeah. Terrible, terrible things. And if you're just sitting there, you have no, I mean, you're not trained in counseling how to kind of compartmentalize this type of thing, or how to put it aside and not let just the weight of all the suffering that you hear about all the time come down on you. I think it could easily warp your worldview where you see Satan and destruction around every corner.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know, man. I've been on this side of the table,
right?
And I think you're right that when you're saying that he does feel like his contribution to this interview about bringing up his blessed and sacred swimsuit metaphor, and that all of these questions that could be that I have to take care of my side, right? This could be the difference between a chronic non-mission going masturbator or someone that can actually go the distance. You're the best around. Nothing's gonna ever keep you down. And it doesn't give, I mean, he's completely squelching any possible objection that the parent could have.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no grounds, like as a righteous parent, there's no grounds for disagreeing with what the bishop is saying.
No, and the bishop has just laid it on the table and he said, the only way that you're going to get me to not ask your kid this question is to not have him get baptized.
Yeah.
That's it.
Right.
And that's your choice. So I'm putting this on you. This is your choice because I'm going to do this. I've already made my choice, and he's trying to frame it as it's not a choice, but it is. And he talks about it a little bit more up here,
Right.
So, all right. So you've got your line, Jake.
Yeah.
Very good. That was really good.
I nailed it.
Yeah, that's an 8.26. So that's the thing that your wife and I tried to talk about.
That's the thing that your wife and I tried to talk about, and I don't know if I got through. And I probably upset her immensely.
Women. Right? Yeah. And I apologize if I upset her. I love the conditional. I apologize if I upset her.
And I apologize if I upset her. But I don't dare stand in this position at this time until they release me and not fulfill my calling and duty. Because frankly, I don't want anybody else's problems on my head. I've got enough of my own.
Right. I'm sure you see your share of the good, bad, and the ugly stuff that comes in here. The stuff you have to deal with.
I love the good. The bad and the ugly, I sit and think, how could we have prevented this? And you know what? The problem that I keep facing is parents weren't involved. Because, well, I'll just tell you straight out. They didn't believe that their little Johnny or little Susie would ever do that. Or two, they just ignored the signs that were there. And the kids are too precious, too innocent to have somebody else outside of mom and dad teach them. One of the hardest things I've ever done is to take my 8-year-old and start initiating the birds and the bees. And you know what? They knew more than what I was trying to teach them about. And we just kind of went, well, who's talked to them? Because we've never broached that subject. So that's my concern.
How could we have prevented it? Then the parents weren't involved.
Yeah. And no one outside of the parents should, teach them this.
Well, he says that's what the uninvolved parents say.
Yeah.
As the objection. But he's saying, no, it is my job as bishop. It's my duty as a bishop and my right as a bishop.
Yeah.
To talk to your children about things that you don't necessarily want me to.
Yeah.
Because somehow by osmosis they're picking up. So where the fuck is Matt?
I think he had to take a dump.
What kind of a dump was that? It's been like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess the way I see it is similar, but I think that each child should be based on each child's basis. We don't try to shelter our kids. We don't want them to be naive. We want them to know what's going on. But at the same time, we try to have an active role in teaching them everything that we're supposed to and keeping them from the evils of the world, not necessarily sheltering them, but keeping them pure and innocent. And
the innocence is not there anymore.
At 8 years old,
the world is not allowing kids to be innocent.
But it hasn't gotten to our children. I'm not naive about that. I know there's a lot of bad things out there, but we homeschool our kids. We know which friends they hang out with. We're very selective on who babysits them. We're involved in almost every part of their lives, especially this young.
Congratulations. You're doing a fabulous job, but you're missing something.
But they're still innocent. They're little children.
At 8, they become accountable. And
right.
There's an influence out there that you cannot encounter except by actively teaching and pursuing. Satan knows your children because he lived with them in the pre-earth life. He knows their weaknesses. He knows their tendencies. And no matter what you're going to do to protect them, he's going to find ways to attack their character and chinks in their armor.
Satan's very powerful.
Matt's back.
Hey!
Hey-o! Sorry, guys.
Yeah, we're getting into another piece here that was a big part of me leaving the church.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I'll carry on.
Don't make mistakes.
I'm not talking about mistakes. I'm talking about every influence that you've said you're doing to protect your children. That's wonderful. Keep it up. But that's not enough. It's not.
Well, what else can I do? I do teach them what they need to know.
And that's what my point that I'm trying to get across is. We think, well, I didn't even know what athletes were when I was a teacher when we had the first bishop meeting and talked about these things. It scared the daylights out of me. Kids, not only at 14, not only know all about that stuff, they're participating in many of that stuff. We've had to move, and this is from the stake president. This is not the bishop speaking. Stake president says we are having to move these topics down and lower. I have to talk with every parent about their children masturbating at 11 years old. That's next week. You think I'm embarrassed? You think I'm worried about that? That's at 11. And at 11, it's already a problem. So, I have parents who have been just like you. We've protected our children, we've watched everything, and they're the ones who come back 6 months later and say, Bishop, I'm sorry. Our children, we don't know. And they are good, solid parents. And I think, what happened? Did they fail as parents? Well, theoretically, you could say they did.
But Satan...
That was one of my favorite lines of the piece.
But Satan is there. Satan's dominion is there. Those feelings and urges are maturing in children at such a young age. You've got kids who are pre-junior high school who are able to get pregnant. Those hormones that are changing at a younger age bring feelings and emotions of confusion. And you know your children. You know what you need to teach them. But I still feel strongly that this is not inappropriate for this age to make sure that they know that, one, you shouldn't look at other people's private, you shouldn't touch other people's private, and you should never allow anyone to touch yours. Have you ever allowed your child to go into a restroom by themselves? Someday you will have to. And you better hope that they're armed, that if some guy approaches them, they know how to appropriately respond.
Sorry, how?
Dude, we're talking about a baptismal interview here. This is...
This is again comes back to he is. I mean, this conversation of fear and if I don't ask these questions, your child will be molested one day and won't know what to do.
Yeah,
it's just such a
they will be under my power.
Right? Yeah, it is. So here's the thing that was suggested up earlier, where he's talking about they'll make mistakes, and the parents like, yeah, they'll make mistakes, and the bishop's like, oh no, it's not mistakes. Like mistakes that can be corrected. These are like serious character flaws that they can never get away from. Like one of the things that really disillusioned me out of the church is that, gospel means good news. And I always thought, okay, it's great to have the good news. What is the good news of the gospel? Oh, it's that your sins have been forgiven you because of Christ's atonement. And isn't that a message of hope and joy that should really help enhance people's lives? And I couldn't quite articulate why it bothered me so much that in the church, it's not okay to even make the mistake. Like the good news isn't, don't worry, Jesus has taken care of all your sins. Just be a good person. You're going to make mistakes, but let's all help each other once we've made those mistakes, correct them. It's not like a retroactive approach that everybody's going to make mistakes. Let's help each other. It's this preventative. Let's be proactive and make sure that the sins never even happen. And it's like getting out in front of that. It kind of erases the good news of the atonement, because it's like you don't want to make Jesus bleed for your sins, do you?
Right.
Like he already did. He already has, and like
that's the point.
Like as a believer, I'm like, but he does. Like, do we believe in the atonement or do we not believe in the atonement? And like what? So to me, as I'm reading this bishop and when I was listening to what he was having to say, I'm like, he's in that preventative mode. He's like, we gotta nip this in the bud before it grows, and Satan's out there ahead of us, and he's always going to be a step ahead of us. He knows us better. Like, then just use your get out of jail free card and Jesus' atonement and quit worrying about it. I don't know, but
right. And Yeah.
There's a level of shame that this bishop is insisting on injecting on these kids, which is to be shamed of touching yourself, shamed of your body, shamed of private parts, and I don't know how else to describe it. And I do find that part of what he is proposing, and not just the question itself. That is less concerning than all these things that he's talking to justify why he needs to ask about this. This guy has a warped sense of what kids know, believe, and do. And he really sees this. If we don't nip this in the bud and if we don't talk about these things, they may actually touch themselves as early as 11. Well, I hate to tell you, brother, infants touch themselves. Toddlers...
it's a little too late to go, yeah, we do, right?
Hey, no, let's do it.
Okay. Take two.
Consider...
Infants touch themselves. Yeah, we do. And that piece of it is just concerning to me as I read this, because this particular guy clearly, well, I should say this: he's not alone, and he's not unique. It does seem that there is a belief out there that we can control what's going on in this world, and the one thing we can control, and by we I mean they, is pornography and masturbation. And I think that there's a belief out there that is the root cause of all the ills, or at least most of them, that are going on. And so that's why there's this focus on it. And I say that because I have older friends, so friends that are in their 50s that have been asked by stake when people have expressed concerns or disbelief on certain things, the next question is, well, are you looking at pornography? They really think that leads to that's the gateway to every ill and disbelief and other things. And somebody's reinforcing this, or somebody's teaching this at some level, and that's what's being communicated by this dude back in 2013.
Well, I think it's because it's part of the culture war that Mormonism is involved in. That in order to create a narrative for its own value, it has to put itself as in opposition to things, and the world's sexual values. The morality has become almost interchangeable with who you have sex with and when and how you do it. That's in Mormonism, when people say like living a moral life, like it's almost Freudian in a way, where every sin is a sexual sin at some point. Like people are doing drugs so they can have sex. People are not going to church because they're having sex or because they're watching porn. Like sex is kind of the one common denominator among all the sins. And that's why he's focusing in on making sure that the 8-year-olds really understand the law of chastity component of the interview, and not breaking down all the ways that you can break the word of wisdom or something like that.
Oops, I didn't know we could talk about sex.
We have talked to him about those things. It's just my point that I feel really weird about having someone else talk to him about it alone with him. And I don't know how he's going to react and how he's going to take it.
Which is, by the way, parent, fantastic point.
Yeah.
One of your best points right there.
Right.
How I explained it to your wife is we talk about it, and every child is usually embarrassed about swimming suits and private parts. Then I invite the parent to come back in, and we go through exactly the same questions all over again, only now I'm coaching, what did you tell me? Tell your parent. What did you tell me? Tell your parent. So that they are telling you what they told me.
Sure.
That way there is nothing that we discussed that you are not aware of that was discussed, how it was discussed, and how they perceived it. That empowers the parent to know, okay, I need to touch up on this, I need to worry about this, I need to explain this.
Now, that piece of it right here seems that they kind of gloss over that, and I guess I'd like to flesh that out a little bit. Well, wait a minute. So if you're saying that I can be in there and that the parents can be in there, then why can't I just be in there for the whole time or something like that? That doesn't. that doesn't get covered. What the bishop doesn't appreciate, though, at this point is those situations of the molesters. What if they're your parents?
Exactly. That's why he separates them. Yeah. So if the kid goes, well, my dad touches me like that, then he doesn't bring the dad back in. He like, ooh.
Right, because this is an interview. This is a baptismal / molestation check witch hunt interview. Okay, sure.
And
Okay,
again,
so-
I've taught this before, but kids don't understand. They think that if a loved one is touching them in a loving way, they don't really understand it. So this bishop is ill-equipped to even start going down that road. But whatever.
I have kids that come in here who don't know what the law of tithing is, who've never heard what the word of wisdom is. So I know every child at 8 is not familiar with the word law of chastity, because I've got 12-year-olds coming in here who don't know what that term means. So I can be delicate. I have 4 boys. I've raised 4 boys past this stage, and it is not easy to talk about it. But I can tell you that it's easier after you've talked to them about it to have them come to you with a concern or problem in the future than for them to come and say, what's this? What's going on? So, as I told your wife, this is Bishop Council. You are free to choose to do what you will or what you will with that. I am not your parent of your child. But I am required to go through the baptismal. Now, if you'd rather I read those directly, that's my option.
What is he talking about?
To read
the original question that was like
sexual
law of
purity,
chastity.
law of chastity or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this
Right.
is where the parent kind of confuses me. Because it seems that if you don't think he's going to understand it and you don't want him to talk about touching himself, then why don't you just read the questions as it is and say, there's a law of chastity. That means having sexual relations with if just say it like that,
Right.
that's our standards. Okay. And then move on. I guess if I'm this guy, as I read him, I'd prefer that.
Then have it go totally over their head. That's fine. Then they can
There does seem to be a little bit of gotcha going on, and I take that just based on the fact that he's recording it, number one. It seems like a little bit, guys. Blah blah blah. My train of thought was just lost.
Oh, there seems to be some gotcha going on. You said?
Oh yeah, some gotcha going by this guy. So in the Reddit post, they also posted a link to what sounded like either a fireside talk or some sort of a meeting where this same bishop was talking, and he references this same thing, and that took place apparently before this meeting, and he talks about in the talk that he is going to have to do this, and he gives again his swimsuit analogy or the talking points that he's going to use the swimsuit to discuss that. And so he's already addressed this in a talk once, and that was recorded before.
And the first 5 minutes of that talk were all disclaimers.
Oh, is that
like? Yeah, it's like, I know this is going to be difficult for a lot of you to hear, but I've run this by the stake president, and he's backed me up on this, and I am the bishop. So he's doing all these disclaimers to establish his own authority, which shows you he knows that, he's run into this before with parents who aren't comfortable with him doing this, but he's the fucking bishop. Yeah. And he's going to be the one that's accountable to God. So sorry, all of you lazy people. It's because you're younger than me. You've been raised in a time that doesn't take things as seriously as me and my generation, which we were told, by the way, that we're going to be the last ones,
Yeah, we're not.
But anyway, so I think that this is just part of this guy's personality.
No, it is. But my point is I feel that there's a little bit of a setup by the dad here, by the folks here, and the other thing that's kind of a red flag to me is just that. So they've only been in the ward for a year. He doesn't have a temple recommend. We know that. I don't know. I wondered if it was. I tried to find out who this guy was, if anyone had any information about him. I kind of sent some feelers out and wasn't able to find anything. But it does feel that there's setup, and that may be part of some of his responses.
Well, the bishop said at one point, "Come to church next week. because we're going to be doing a, like a 5th hour combined meeting. And it seemed a little strange. Like I think the reason that he said come to church next week is because this guy's got a habit of not coming to church. So kind of like not fully active. And so the bishop's already got a little bit of an axe to grind against him.
Right. But I don't feel comfortable of that with an 8-year-old.
Right.
But everybody I talk to about this, that is appropriate for that age. So I apologize if I offended your wife. I apologize if I've come over strongly to you. But I'm mandated by my calling and direction from the state presidency to be direct. You want me to pull out the mission questions that are now being asked?
Have they changed?
Oh, yeah. The letter that I send out to a year before a kid goes on a mission. Have you ever had any touchings of a girl? Have you ever dated a girl? Have you ever felt any homosexual tendencies? Have you ever masturbated at all, ever in your life? Have you ever seen pornography ever in your life? Okay, these are 17, 18-year-olds who are being asked these questions that were only asked when I was going in for a marriage interview.
Right.
So it's shifted down. So if you don't feel comfortable with me asking those questions, that's your choice. I think you're making a mistake by delaying baptism. Heaven forbid, should he be killed in a car accident, that's something that you'll have to deal with.
Are you saying he's going to go to hell if he doesn't get baptized right away?
But are we going to have no discussion about the what if your son gets killed?
It's just that's a horrible thing to say.
How can anyone say this to anybody?
It's like extortion. This is mafia speak here.
Right.
It's a beautiful kid you've got there. I'd hate for something bad to happen to him on the way home from school. It's just wow.
But this really isn't that different than the things he's already said when he's talked about the kid that could never go, like parents that weren't involved, and now a kid can't go on his mission because he's masturbating. Like when you were bringing up, it's all about preventative stuff. It kind of denies the grace of Christ and doesn't really talk about the good news. Mormonism's approach to it anyway.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. I think it's very good insight. I also think that the preventative measures, they're almost moving the preventative measures back, like where now it's like this weird deterministic almost flavor to it of if your parents don't teach you correctly, then you're just screwed. I mean, how do you ever come back from that?
Right. And well, especially in a case where they could have been baptized and they weren't baptized and they get killed in a car accident.
Right.
Boy, then you're really screwed. That's something you've really got to deal with. And it's like all those people that say, oh, it's a choice. It's your choice whether you have them baptized or not. Of course, here are the consequences of making that choice, which really means it's not a choice.
Right.
But we're going to call it a choice because then that is a better shaming device than if we put it on us and say that we're mandating this.
Right.
Well, when you go back to that piece about if you don't want him baptized, I didn't get to comment on this, but I did love his, I won't ask the question if you don't want him to get baptized.
Right.
Like if he doesn't come in to the interview, I certainly I won't run around chasing him around asking him the questions.
Yeah. I'm not going to text it to him anymore.
Right.
No. So you asked if he's getting. Did you ask? Are you saying if he's going to hell?
Are you saying that that he's going to hell if he doesn't get baptized right away?
Are you saying he's going to go to hell if he doesn't get baptized right away?
No, I'm just saying that's additional work that'll have to be performed in his behalf after he's passed away. Is not 8 the age of accountability?
That's what the scriptures say.
Okay. Is not 8 the age that each child or person becomes accountable for their actions? Is not age 8, once you're baptized, when you can take the atonement and apply it to your life through weekly taking the sacrament?
Is not 8 the age of accountability?
That's what the scriptures say.
Is not 8 the age that each child or person become accountable for their actions? Is not age 8 once you're baptized when you can take the atonement and apply it in your life through weekly taking of the sacrament?
What does that even mean? Anyway.
So what is he getting? I guess he's saying that like right when they turn 8, it's like original sin, but just move forward 8 years.
To 8 years.
Right when they turn 8. Oh my God! Now you're under condemnation.
So apparently, at 7 years or 7 years and 11 months and 30 days, you got to get ready to dunk, because every day after 8,
right, you are under the wiles of the world, and you're tainted by just the fact that you are the age of accountability.
It's a horrible message.
Ugh. All right.
Sure. So a person who's not baptized when they're 8 and they become accountable, who's going to become accountable for their actions, thoughts, and deeds at that point?
The parents.
The parents.
The parents.
Yeah, you're responsible for their thoughts.
Right. I didn't realize, is that really
actions,
what it is?
It's just, so here's another 3 pattern, Matt. Actions, thoughts, and deeds. What's the difference between an action and a deed?
Action and a deed? Absolutely nothing.
It's like the deed is there for redundancy to give it the nice 3 pattern thing. Action, thoughts, and deeds. Dude,
I
Bishop.
can't
unring that bell.
Think about that from now on.
Yay! I've wormed into your brain.
No, what I love though is when I actually have 4 things that are distinct. What I believe are both distinct, different, and something else from one another.
Right.
Boom.
I see what you did there.
But as a guy who speaks to juries, it's good to know. There is some efficacy in packaging things in 3s,
right.
And they're not going to be parsing it out or anything, but it'll feel more comfortable. Like receiving that message will feel, oh, that's some good shit right there, because it came in a nice, comfortable 3 pattern.
And it is funny because I had a trial after we had that conversation from Sunstone.
Yeah,
and I literally did put a couple 3 patterns in just for that reason.
Nice.
So You're
welcome. And that's when they went, okay, all right, we want to plea.
Yeah,
take us
to. I'll plea. I'm guilty, not innocent, and I committed this crime.
Yeah, nice, good job, Jake.
Although you're on the defense side, so whatever the opposite of all those are.
Yeah, we won't talk about this case.
All right, Bishop, the parents.
So, your wife and yours concerns about teaching your children, I believe, pale in comparison to what is at stake that you're making the decisions for. I've had little girls in here who had no idea what we talked about, who were very comfortable with saying, well, yeah, I was what I sort of did.
You have to ask the girls the same question about
identical
touching themselves.
I say it in such a manner that those kids don't pick up on it. But if they had ever been abused, the door has been opened, that the Spirit can prick their heart, and they could then say, well, yeah, I had somebody, and I dread that ever happening.
Which means it never has. But he's always terrified. He doesn't dread it happening. He's dying for it to happen to validate his fear.
Wants it so badly.
Oh, jeez. The Spirit's going to prick their heart and tell you, it's okay to talk to the bishop about this. You can tell him.
But it's there. And unfortunately, in today's society, it happens. And parents don't always know. So the way I ask it is, when you go swimming...
Yeah, dude, we've heard your fucking...
He's really proud of it.
He's super happy with this.
Proud. That's why I ask.
Why do you wear swimsuits? We wear swimsuits to cover our private parts. We don't let others see our private parts. We don't touch our private parts or touch other people to see other people's private parts. That's what law chassis. Are you willing to do that?
He's so pleased that he thinks he has connected with children when it comes to this lesson.
And most every kid, it goes right above their head.
So it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Which is, I think, the father's point in the first place.
I gotta say though, when I was 8 years old, and in that age, I remember private parts as a euphemism, and it was kind of arousing. Like it was like, ooh, that's naughty, you know. Like I don't know. That's how I thought of it. It is kind of like, oh, that's like when girls are in the bathtub or something. Like I could see private parts. It would make my mind would go there. It would make me start thinking about things.
So if he talked about touching your private parts, you think it would have introduced that curiosity?
It like for me, I was like 17 before I ever touched my private part in that way. You know, so I had no idea what that was at the time, but I knew what private parts were, and I knew, I knew that I had done like the little experimental. You know, like I had a neighbor down the street that was 3 years older than me, and I was 7, I was 8. You know, she was 3 years older than me, and we would go swimming in her swimming pool, and one of us, we would take turns. One of us would swim down to the bottom of the pool and take off our swimsuit, while the other one looked at us from the top of the pool through goggles. And it's just like kids playing like the sexuality. So I had things like that happen. There was never any touching. It was just looking. But there was that kind of sense of intrigue. And I remember I was in first grade, went over to some kid's house, and they were running around that, like there were no parents there. And they were running around the house naked. And they're like, you should run around too. And I felt totally like hot and guilty and just this lump in my throat, but it was kind of exciting too. And I still remember being in that little teeny tiny bathroom and stripping my clothes off and putting a towel around myself and going out there. And then we just like all ran around like crazy naked kids. I'm like, I'm being so bad right now. So I do think that this parent has a point, you know, like Bishop, when just because you say the word private parts doesn't mean that you're not going to be piquing a child's curiosity or, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just remember those things, so I wanted to share them.
Yeah, I certainly remember playing house and engaging in very normal and healthy sexual play with other children, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. And I don't remember feeling guilt for it, but I must have at some point. Did you feel? Did you feel like the need to repent for that stuff, Glenn?
No, because I felt I was so young when it happened, and it didn't continue, unfortunately, into my dating life.
Oh, actually, now that you say that, so I remember that some of that playing house and some of these sex games were certainly before I was 8.
Yeah,
and the reason I remember that because I remember justifying in my mind that, well, this feels sinful. This feels like what they talk about, sin, but I can't sin yet. I'm not 8.
Yeah.
And that at some level when I was baptized, I remember thinking, well, whether I could sin or not, I think I did sin when I was a little younger with some of these sex games. Yeah. But whether that happened or not, I'm now clean. I remember that being a big deal.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Huh. Wow, this is like therapy session with Matt. This is really, I think, a new memory on Infants on Thrones.
Wow.
And it's not. Yeah, this is not created.
We just created it. And you're convinced that it happened. Nice.
See, you were going to go the Loftus route. No, yeah. This is a real memory.
Yeah, I know. I planted that seed in you 3 years ago, and it's just now finally come to fruition. I know what I'm doing.
In fact, all of Infants on Thrones has been a facade.
We could shut it down.
So that we could, exactly.
We've just been trying to plant a false memory on Matt.
Jason Bourne, I'm going to go kill somebody. Bam, bam, bam.
Yeah.
Right.
We incepted you.
I can show you on Facebook the girls that I saw, whose vaginas I saw before I was 8. Huh.
Oh, you've already shown me those.
Oh, yeah, right.
They look older now, though, right?
But much older, older.
Okay.
The vagina, well, the whole.
Stop.
But the vagina.
Stop.
John Hammer says no.
John Hammer says no.
All right. That's the way I do it. That's the way.
Well, yeah, I'll wear my swimsuit when I go swimming. That's the way I do it. That's delicate enough. Most kids understand it. And it's the parents who are embarrassed that I'm talking about masturbation and talking about other things along that line. Now, 4 years ago, I would have been extremely embarrassed to even say that word. Right. So you can see that this calling, this position has put me in a position where I'm not comfortable with it, but I understand the importance of it. Because I've had too many kids sit in that chair right there and say, I want to get married in the temple, or I want to go on a mission, or I want to be ordained this. And I have to say, I'm sorry, but you're not worthy. It's 6 months before a kid can even be interviewed to go on a mission if he's ever participated in that and not repented of it fully.
You know, this
that's the thing. 6 months now. If you tugged it just once.
Well, I see. It participated in that act. It's not really clear what he's talking about there.
Got to be jerking it, right?
So you think it couldn't be sex, right? I mean, it couldn't be like,
because if you're sex, you don't go at all. Is what they're saying.
I think it's masturbation.
Yeah. No, that's
probably. But 6 months, no. I mean, hard cap.
That can't be true. Otherwise, every missionary would go out on 18 years and 6 months.
Yeah, I don't know.
Except the ones that lie.
Except the ones that lie. Good point.
Right. They'll make wonderful missionaries.
Effective.
Yeah. You know, this actually reminds me of that part in A Few Good Men where Jack Nicholson's like, you want me on that wall. You need me on that wall.
Yeah.
That's funny, dude.
It is.
You mean the bishop is that guy? Yeah.
You can see that this calling, the position's put me in a position. I'm not comfortable with it, but he's like, you want me up there protecting you.
I have a greater responsibility than you can possibly fathom. You have that luxury. You have the luxury of not knowing what I know.
That the devil's gonna get you, and he's gonna get you bad. Asking these kids if they touch themselves,
while tragic, probably saved lives. And my existence, while grotesque and incomprehensible to you, saves lives. You don't want the truth because deep down in places you don't talk about at parties, you want me.
Behind this desk.
You need me.
Behind this desk.
We use words like honor,
stewardship,
code,
accountability,
loyalty.
Little factories.
We use these words as the backbone of a life spent defending something. You use them as a punchline. I have neither the time nor the inclination to explain myself to a man
or his wife,
and who rises and sleeps under the blanket of the very freedom that I provide, and then questions the manner in which I provide it. I would rather you just said thank you and went on your way. Otherwise, I suggest you pick up a weapon and stand a post. Either way, I don't give a
flip
what you think you are entitled to.
Yeah, exactly. This is I wish that there had been a you can't handle the truth moment. Maybe that's really kind of what he's doing. He's like, you can't handle the truth. Yeah. These kids have already done it. They're not innocent anymore.
So do we call this episode A Few Good Kids?
Yeah. A few good infants.
Just a few good kids, yeah.
A few good kids. That's freaking great.
So I hope I'm getting across the severity and the church's position.
Yeah, I understand the severity of it, and I see where you're coming from. I just have to think about it. Then when we're ready for him to be able to talk about those things, we can go forward.
I think you're putting too much precedence on this as a parent concerned than letting the Spirit of the Lord direct what the interview is actually for and about.
I would just like to be able to teach him those things when he is ready for it. And I don't think there's any way he's ready for that.
Have you talked to the other parents who've had all their children go through this in that time?
A lot of my friends that had been baptized recently, their interviews were really simple. They just asked them if they believed in Jesus. And they didn't ask every question.
No, then they're not doing their job.
One more time. A lot of my friends that had their children baptized recently, their interviews were really simple. They just asked if they believed in Jesus. They didn't ask every question.
Well, then they're not doing their job.
Okay.
I love how he has dominion over all bishop,
all
bishops. Standard.
Yeah.
I am the standard of bishops.
Yeah, but you could tell that in the way that he says, I'm not going to, on my watch, be the guy that laxes.
Anyway. Right. You need me on that wall.
Yeah, right.
But it is funny. He talks about the mantle of the bishop, blah 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 blah. But then here he's like, well, those bishops not so much.
Yeah, they haven't. No. Okay,
wait. Sorry, did you guys already cover when I broke that when he says, I've been in this chair, and I mean not across this table because it hasn't happened to me, but another bishop told me once.
Yeah.
Okay, that was pretty good.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That was awesome when they did that.
Awesome. Remember that? That was awesome.
That was a hoax, right?
Okay, I just don't think that the policy should be correct in every instance with every child. I don't think. I wanted to know what was right. I wanted to know what the church's stance was on this, and from what you've told me, it sounds like it's been changed a little bit. It's gotten a little bit more strict, saying more things to younger kids about sex.
This is what I ask. You know that if you want to go talk to the stake president, I would love to refer you to talk to him.
Okay.
And you can ask him. Take my letter. Say this is what the bishop was going to discuss.
It's not you. We don't have a problem with you at all.
It's
the policy that confused us and that bothered us. The one thing that I did pull up, and if it's changed, it's changed, but the church used to say that that sex education was the full responsibility of the parents. He's having such a hard time asserting his own kind of authority here. And
he looked up the handbook.
Yeah.
He looked up the handbook, but he doesn't want to tell them, cite it as if he's really prepared.
And that it can't be shifted to the church.
Mm-hmm. So am I teaching it?
Well, you're bringing it up where it could make him curious about it.
And whose responsibility is it to teach it?
Oh, good. We're back to the Socratic questioning method. Well, we want to teach him, but just not yet. We want to wait until we feel it's the right time.
And when's that?
When the Lord dictates. Boom! Oh, two can use that.
I could come
He just pulled out inspiration card. Okay.
And boom. Check. You've got him in check, do you? Let's see.
Oh, let's see. Do you feel that the Lord could direct me into bringing up these questions?
Checkmate.
Well, I think that as my role as a parent, I would have the right to teach him first.
Yes, you do. But since you already fucked that up, I'm going to clean up your mess. Sorry. Yes, you do. And my counsel as the bishop is if you've waited till after he is 8, you've waited too long.
How much do you...
I got to say, I think he's kind of right. I think you should be having these conversations with your kids way younger than 8. But
probably. But to say that he has some sort of standing.
Matt likes the bishop. Matt likes the bishop.
No, there is a lot I don't like about the parents. Bishop's flat wrong all the way around, but it doesn't mean the parents right.
Yeah.
Matt and Bishop sitting in a tree.
Wow.
Judging.
Nice. Did you just make that up on the spot?
Oh, right on the spot.
Wow.
Thank you. How much? Oh, you can take that how you will.
That's a nice little line, though.
How much do you suggest that I teach children when they're 8 years old?
Do you go swimming with your children? Do you have them wear swimming suits? When they run around the house butt naked like Glenn, do you tell them to go put clothes on?
Matt's the one that's naked.
No, you were naked as a little kid.
Oh, right. In that one house. You're right.
Yeah.
At that age, that's sufficient. Boys will touch themselves.
Infants
they need
too.
to know that it's okay when you're going to the bathroom. Yeah, I don't know how exactly you want to touch it, but it's very but we had to very delicately talk to our kids. You don't play with yourself.
Sure, and we've told him that.
Well, then you've already taught him more than I cover in this letter. Okay, I do want to stop here because when the dad says this, well, sure, we've told him that. Doesn't it kind of undercut his entire premise for going in there? Because he said he's not ready for that. He won't know what that means. So this is again where I kind of think that this is a bit of a plant for this right here, because if you've told him that, then you've had this conversation, then your bishop. So he's being disingenuous somewhere. That's what I'm saying based on this.
The parent, the dad that's in here.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think that there's some ad hoc rationalization going on here too, where like he's kind of shifting. Not just he won't know what it means, but I don't want to talk about it with other people.
Well, he's super defensive because the bishop has been inferring this whole time that he's a shitty parent.
Yeah.
So he's kind of put in the position of having to like defend himself. Oh, well, I have taught him that. I am doing those things. I'm not a bad parent. So you're right. You know, like when we're sitting here and we're analyzing it and picking it apart, we're going, oh, that's not consistent with what he said earlier. It's not. But there's a lot of emotion that you can hear in the recording that we're not able to really recreate with all of our acting chops. Yeah. We're just not able to quite do it. But I think there's a lot of that going on.
I guess I really would like to interview the dad and say, really, where were your concerns? Is that really where your concerns? Were you also concerned about this? Do you teach? You know, because I wonder if it was more that a parent just maybe more like me, which was encouraging healthy sexuality and that, and then go.
Bye. Bye.
Bye, Dylan.
Bye.
Sorry.
When he said earlier, what the bishop? Oh no, the bishop said, "Isn't 8 the age of accountability?" And the parent said, "Well, the scriptures say so." Like to me, that would have been like dodging a landmine back then. Like I may not agree with it. You know, I may not agree with it, but the scriptures say so. So it kind of an indication where this guy is. I think there's more going on in their dynamic.
That's a really good that's a good catch.
Yeah.
And that's I wanted to know what his motivation was.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think he likes the authority of the bishop in the first place, and the bishop knows that. So there's this tension based on the relationship in the ward that it sounds like. You're just reading stuff into the text. I could be totally wrong.
Yeah. No, I don't think so.
And maybe that's why he's as kind of quiet and reserved as he is, you know, he feels like if he does try and challenge the bishop on any of this stuff, it's just going to spiral out of control.
Yeah.
The whole interaction.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you've already taught him more than I cover in this letter.
Right. I just don't want it brought up with other people. He doesn't know you that well. He barely sees you at church, and that's about it. And it's just going to be...
Then I would be very sad that he doesn't know the bishop well enough to know that a bishop's interview, because his whole life he'll be asked very embarrassing questions by men he barely knows that are his priesthood leaders.
Okay, stop. Read that again. This probably is my favorite quote of the script, of the transcript.
Then I would be very sad that he doesn't know the bishop well enough to know a bishop's interview, because his whole life he'll be asked very embarrassing questions by men he barely knows that are his priesthood leaders. Unintentionally so pithy and on point. That's exactly my problem. That's what's so screwed up about all of this.
I loved that. You can put that on a T-shirt.
Yeah.
Come to the Mormon Church. You will be where for your whole life you'll be asked very embarrassing questions by men you barely know
that are your priesthood leaders.
That is a T-shirt right there. In fact, I'm gonna take a note.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
By Infants on Thrones. Okay. Well, I'm gonna jump in as parent. Well, he's only 7. And we've only been here for a year.
That was the line I really wanted to read. Man.
This one I don't feel bad about.
Glenn, take over for Bishop.
All right. He's been here to get treats from me. I see him in the hall. Yeah. I see him in the hall. I talk to him standing up in primary. He's been in my van without any windows. That side outlet. He knows me probably.
He describes grooming behavior here. I just cracked up. Those two lines together. He'll be asked embarrassing questions, and then this to be on the heels of that just cracked up. Because it really does sound like grooming behavior. So.
He knows me probably better than some of the kids that I've done interviews who are members of the ward. Much other than just, well, their parents don't come. So I'm sorry, but I can counter all of your arguments. 1, because I've heard a lot of them before. And 2, I'm not going to
not going to touch.
Not going to be responsible for not asking the appropriate questions when I have been given a mantle. You've already taught your children these aspects. We just discussed that. I don't go into depth. And put off's not the right word. I'm a little offended that you don't trust me as a bishop to know sensitively how to cover these subjects at an age-appropriate age.
That's fantastic. Again, invoking bishop, that you can't just implicitly trust me to know that I can deal very sensitively with children despite having zero training on that really does offend me. And you're saying something about my spirituality and about my my position as a bishop. That's really what you're challenging when you're questioning that I'm not doing things with the inspiration. That's what he's communicating there.
Yep.
And it's also the way he sees any priesthood office, because he doesn't have, he apparently has no problem with the fact that your priesthood leader can barely know you, and yet that you should trust them implicitly to ask you these very embarrassing questions, even though you don't know them.
Yep.
We're not upset at you at all. It's the policy that we don't agree with. We think that the church should respect the wishes of parents.
Oh, so go ahead and write the first presidency and you tell them. Write the same. Go to the stake president, and if I'm not in line, you can bet that he'll come down, and not only will he address this bishop, but he'll call a bishop's meeting with all of us bishops, and we'll all be put back in line. But I'm telling you from my meetings previously, and from my writing up, and from my discussions with what he's having us talk about, 8, 9, 10, 11... what age are you saying should be the appropriate age for them to be taught this?
Depends on the kid.
Okay, that's not the way we've been instructed as bishops.
I love that guy's delivery on that, because he does nail it. He's like, yeah, dude, it freaking matters who the kid is. That's my point.
Right.
He really thinks he's got this huge gauntlet, and the bishop just rolls over him. Okay. Yeah. And the bishop kind of knows. That's the first time the bishop is a little in check right there.
Yeah. No, but it's like all of this could be reduced to the parent saying, I don't like that, and the bishop coming back going, Bishop.
Right.
Bishop. Bishop.
But it's all about like rules. Like, what's the cutoff? What's the age of accountability?
Yeah.
What's the age that you teach him at? How many 6 months if you masturbated?
Yeah, he's a
Pharisee.
Pharisee.
You go on your mission. Yeah, exactly.
He is a Pharisee, Bishop Pharisee.
Exactly. But it also highlights just how insidious the church can be. And I know that's strong language, but when this is a demonstration of it, where they are literally coming between children and parents, and they are literally taking the place or going against a parent's wishes as it comes to a child, and doing it so unapologetically is insane to me, as when you talk about what this is and what the church is willing to do, and that there's not just immediate deference to a parent. Cult is a strong word as well. This is where this church is different than other churches, because I suspect most churches, if they heard this, would think it's just sheer insanity that they would come between what they want to teach their children.
And it's not just that they're coming between the kids like, oh, it's just an incidental thing, I just have to do it. I mean, the way he phrases it that way at some points, but I think really deep down, and he does express this at different parts, that it's his duty to come between the child and the parent, because he needs to teach this child the things that the lazy, parents won't do.
Yeah.
It's not just an incident, unapologetic, like, well, we just have to, it's just the way it is, and this is an incidental, like, collateral damage. No, this is my duty, is to come between you and your child and teach him this thing because you have failed to do so.
And I think it's important for me to acknowledge, as we're doing this, that this is not every single bishop in the church. This is not, and we're not saying that. I'm certainly not saying that. But when you have these kind of discussions about, is religion a net negative or a net positive, because there's a lot of really good things that the Mormon Church does and that members of the church do for each other, and it's not this totally bad thing. But when you get people that are like this bishop is, and they get this whiff of authority, they take it to such an extreme because they really believe that the worst possible thing that could happen to these kids is they become addicted to masturbation.
Yeah.
And what is the harm in that? The harm is that they have become natural men who are enemies to God. They no longer are sensitive to the Spirit. They don't have the guidance of the Spirit in their life, and they're more susceptible to Satan leading them off and creating horrible lives for them here, and then, an afterlife that is just irredeemable. So like for you to say, Matt, it's just insane that they would come down on this. Yeah, it is if you reject all of the supernatural and afterlife stuff. But if that's really the perspective and the worldview, that they're not just promoting messages of fear because it's effective. They're really afraid too.
I agree with that. I think that this guy and the church, when they talk about pornography and masturbation being a health crisis and a public crisis, whatever, I think they genuinely believe that. They think that's true. I'm with you on that. It's when you put it in context of in what universe can a person like this who you barely known for a year can really inject themselves in something that's so fundamental and so intimate and so personal to not just your family but your children. That list is very small, and that those organizations that would allow that to happen are very, very small, even amongst religions. That was my point.
Yeah. And I think what this parent should have done, and I don't know what ended up happening from this, is that, say, Bishop, you said that you would just read the words. Just read the words. Don't do the bathing suit analogy.
Yeah.
But the bishop would still have a problem with that because he would say, you don't tell me how to run my own ward. You haven't been called.
But this is also kind of overlapping jurisdictions where, I know that Oaks gave this talk about like the priesthood line and the revelation line. I don't remember what it was.
Yeah.
The inspiration line,
personal and priesthood. Yeah.
Personal and priesthood. That's what it was.
Yeah.
But I mean, where does this particular overlapping jurisdiction end? Because the bishop seems to clearly think, well, yeah, I mean, I absolutely have the right to tell you whether or not you should have taught your children about this at this point. Yeah, and if you were going to teach them, you should do it my way. Because you wear a swimming suit, and why?
Yeah, where it overlaps is whenever a child's asked about sexuality. So, and any aspect of it. So otherwise it would be, well, we leave that to the parent. And at one point that made sense, but that's where he's having such difficulty. He doesn't understand that by introducing a topic, you are necessarily teaching, and you are starting to instruct on sexuality, and that's what the bishop fails to understand. The idea of introducing a topic is what he's doing, and so that's where the overlap is. And
I don't know that. I think you're being too nice to him there, because he also gives all these arguments that, like, don't assume that they're innocent. They're not innocent.
Right.
They're not accountable, but they could be hardcore pornographers at 7. And, it's our job to make sure that if anything like that has happened to them or got in its grips, that we can root it out at this early stage in their life so it doesn't ruin them forever. And so if the parents, like, I really do get the sense that this bishop just feels superior to this parent in every single way.
Yeah.
And so the overlap is, as long as your personal revelation agrees with my priesthood revelation, it's valid. As soon as there's a conflict, you're wrong. And, when he asked the question earlier, well, if you're not going to teach your kid at 8, when are you going to teach him? And the guy goes, well, when the Spirit reveals it to me, when the Lord tells me. That's the personal priesthood. And the bishop's like, yeah, well, guess what, Bishop, I trump you.
Yeah,
yeah. No, but what I'm saying is, this question is teaching sex education, and he says, how am I teaching it? You are.
But I think that he knows that, and he thinks that there are parents in this wishy-washy liberal world who have bought into a wrong message about parenting, that you need to shelter your kids, and he fundamentally disagrees with that. So he's good, and that's why I think this is unrighteous dominion, because he's got an agenda.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely,
and he's going to do that regardless of any objections that parents may have.
Right. So you're
even
saying
if
he was being disingenuous when he said, "I don't try to teach." Am I doing that? You're saying he was just that was just rhetorical to try to put him off that part of it.
Right. And he probably hasn't thought of it that much as teaching, but if you like sat down and talked to him, he'd go, "Well, then I guess you're right. I am teaching it, and the reason I'm doing it is because," and then he'd spew off all this bullshit again, and he'd end up telling you 2 or 3 times about kids in swimsuits.
Swimsuits. And he did already cover
ones that die in car accidents.
Yeah. He did already cover that other bishops thought it was a very good way to talk about it. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Why do we have to do it exactly that way as a parent? Because I feel like I'm forced to talk to him about masturbation before his 8-year-old interview for baptism, and I don't want to.
That's the way you guys are interpreting it because of your nervousness in discussing it. You've already told me you've talked to your son about not touching himself. You've already told him about not wearing clothes. That's the extent of the interview questions. Do I use the M word is what it said? Never. That's not age appropriate. Now, when they're 12 and they're going to deacon's camp, I'll bring up it a little more forcefully.
When they're for deacon's camp.
Yeah.
Clearly, we're going to talk about the double M.
Yeah. When they're a teacher, 14, 15 years old, you bet I'm hitting it pretty heavy because they're seeing friends at school looking at inappropriate stuff. They're seeing their friends laugh and joke about inappropriate stuff. My concern is if we don't teach them at a younger age, Satan's not giving up. He's not pulling back. And that child's not ready to be taught that or that deacon. He'll never do that. What?
So he's saying...
So Satan's not saying, oh, they're not ready. No, Satan will never... Okay.
Yeah, exactly. It's an arms race.
Yeah.
It's an arms race. You're keep going, Bishop.
Okay, Satan's going to make sure that those opportunities are presented. And the only way you can count that is to be taught. What? And the only way you can counter that is to be taught.
Oh,
yeah, there we go.
The transcript's not perfect.
Okay, and if you're doing your job teaching him, then I won't have any worries. But you're teaching your children doesn't mean that we have no responsibility. And I feel really strongly that they need to understand there are basic modesty, law of chastity issues at 8 years old to be baptized. Why do you think we shut the curtains when the kids come out of the water to be baptized? Well, they're dripping wet and white clothes become more see-through. It's a modesty issue.
This guy's a freak.
It's a modesty issue. So, I mean, I'm sensitive to these things, but do you feel you have to teach your child in all the aspects about masturbation before you have the interview with me? That's your choice.
Like, do you have to talk to him about, finger in the bum part of it?
Right.
You don't have to talk about that piece, right?
Is that part of it?
Righty, lefty.
Really?
Is that part? Well, it can be. It can be whatever you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
Come with me and you'll be...
Oh, is that the Gene Wilder?
Right.
Oh, moment of silence for Gene Wilder.
Your masturbation.
Oh, jeez.
I did there was a meme today with the Gene Wilder, Willy Wonka, the sarcastic meme that they have. It was like, oh, I just died. Do tell me what a big fan you've been of me. I thought,
right.
That's
pretty good one.
Yeah. But I'm saying your perceptions, if those are your perceptions, are incorrect. If we go into that. If you've read the whole letter.
I have.
You understand that there's 2 sentences, maybe 3 sentences. This is advice to the parents. The actual sentence that I've already repeated twice.
Right.
So how you choose to go forward, that's your choice. Your choice is your choice. It's just about choosing. Again, I apologize if I offended your wife. I apologize if I offended you, but I'm not going to apologize for the stewardship that I have to maintain.
I will not apologize.
I will not apologize.
My job.
I've got kids that I really love, that I would like to see go on missions. I've got kids that I'd like to see have temple recommends, to be ordained, or any slew of other things. They can't. I've got good friends with married children that are now struggling in their marriages because of something that happened when they were 6, 7, 8 years old. And it wasn't a bishop's interview. And that is heart-wrenching for them and for us who love that family. See, this is in the preventative stuff. I'm going to prevent this from happening to your kids.
Yeah.
Right.
All the misery.
Because he feels like he can... Okay, so look at this. He says, married with children that are now struggling in their marriages. So he's thinking that if I don't say this, there's a chance that my saying this can prevent hardship in somebody's marriage when they're 40 years old.
Right, because the wife won't be such a raving porn addict.
I mean, it's just crazy, though, to think about, like, oh, this is the cause and effect. This is how this is going to work.
Yeah, that's absolutely what they're talking about. That some guys look at porn, and that started when they're 8. Life to them is so simple. It's so simple. Never look at a boob. You'll never want to look at a boob again.
Yeah.
But it's not as if, like... He thinks on one hand, he's downplaying it. Like, it's 2 sentences and you've already talked about this stuff with your kids, so don't worry about it. But then on the other hand, he's like, and this could also save them from damnation.
Right, yeah.
You know, it's like,
right. They won't get it.
How can it be so insignificant and just not even worth worrying about if it can save their soul?
Yeah.
That's good.
And I've also good friends who homeschool. I know all about that. I don't know if you know this person. She's a big leader in homeschooling.
Fabulous lady.
No, my wife has met her once.
All right, Jake, you're a parent. I'm Bishop.
All right.
Okay, I'm getting.
My wife has met her before.
Fabulous lady. More outspoken than anyone else you want to know on that and any other subject that she's passionate about.
Yeah.
But she's talked about how you still can't protect your children as much as, and like how he's citing now an authority to the homeschooler. Mm-hmm. You know, I know you homeschool, but let me tell you about this other person who's smarter than you and even more outspoken than your little wife over there.
Yeah. He's got like such a negative attitude towards women. Like, she's passionate and outspoken on any issue that she's passionate about.
Yeah.
Those women.
That's as much as I'd like to say all the kids in primary are angels, they are not. And to come to church, they'll be associated with kids who are probably not as well behaved as they should be.
Sure.
And if you've watched the commercials that kids watch between cartoons, I don't know. I'm presuming you have a TV in your home.
Well, we canceled our cable so we just let them watch movies and cartoons that we have on DVD and things like that.
Well, we actually didn't have any television for years.
Judging.
It's not a competition or anything, but we didn't even have a TV.
Didn't miss it at all.
That's good.
It wasn't until the kids got into sports. Actually, my wife was bedridden for almost a month or so with one child when we finally bought a television because she was just going stir crazy.
You are resolved of that sin of getting a TV.
It was a VCR and a television combination. By the way, this is in the fucking
right.
This is
it ran on electricity.
The point is, I commend you on your desire to protect your children, but Satan's gonna find a way to get around that. He always has. He always will. And so we can only counter by teaching instruction and praying like crazy and hoping that the child's choices, because we still believe in free agency. We can't force our kids.
Right.
We'll make the right decisions. So my point is, you tell me when your son is ready to be baptized. I think he's ready as soon as he turns 8.
Okay, we'll let you know.
Okay, and please. My concern is that your words are we don't agree with the church policy. I believe there's a living prophet. I believe that the living prophets advise apostles. I believe the apostles advise stake presidents. And I believe that stake presidents advise bishops.
Oh my God.
And I believe bishops advise Elders Quorum presidents, high priest group leaders, Relief Society presidents. And that's the chain of how the Lord organizes his church. Interesting to believe rather than know on that one. Do I always agree with every policy the church has always had? No. But it's my will that's always been out. But it's my will that's always been out.
So he's the one that's wrong when he hasn't agreed.
Right. I think that's what he's saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as I get more knowledge and more information, I understand that I'm the one who needs to conform with the way the Lord has established his doctrine.
See, isn't this nice of him that he's not just directly telling this parent that he's the one that's wrong right now? He's saying, I was in a position like you once where I was the one that was wrong. And I was big enough to learn more about it and come back in line. And, you know, it's just my prayer, Elder.
This guy is gunning so hard for upper management. I mean, this guy pines to be in the red chairs one day. He's really aligned himself both in his attitudes and this type of stuff right here to his cadence. He's working on that apostle speech as he talks.
Yeah. Well, and he has this obsession with the hierarchy. You know, he's always talking about you can go to the stake president, and then right here he draws the line: living prophets, apostles, stake presidents, bishops, elders quorum presidents. So he loves that hierarchy. He loves pointing it out and understanding where he fits in the org chart, and hopefully, maybe he'll be at some higher level where he's advising bishops himself.
Yep. So he's the one who needs to conform with the way the Lord has established doctrine, teachings, and whatever. That's all I'm going to say about that. You're welcome to go to the stake president. Take him a letter and say, we feel it's inappropriate for the bishop to discuss that, and if he gives me the I'll gladly skip that sentence or whatever thing and part it is so that your son can be baptized as soon as possible.
But it's again like really shitty that he doesn't have to do this.
Right.
Like he doesn't have to send this guy to the stake president and then if the stake president says then I'll do it. He could respect this guy's wishes.
All right, I'll skip it.
Yeah.
But why stick to this so much? Like I just don't get why this is the hill he wants to.
Because the hierarchy is so important to him. If he starts taking orders from the minions, what does that do to the hierarchy?
And more,
that's not where instruction's supposed to come from.
But do you mean the question, Jake? Do you mean this particular question? Why are you so insistent on asking?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this particular guy just happens to think that the root of all evil lies in masturbation and pornography. Because he's seen it as a bishop. He hears these horror stories. And so for him...
It's hidden in cartoons.
Right. He's seen... And he's seen, The Lion King and, all those Disney movies where they've worked it in. I'm sure that's what he's talking about.
Did you see how Pinocchio's nose grows?
Oh.
Yeah, you know what that means.
Swing, swing.
And when Aladdin tells Jasmine to take off her clothes...
Come on, good. Can you just take off? Take off.
Hello. This is the real Stephen Hawking again. A pretty smart guy who has read some pretty good books and occasionally podcasts for some pretty great dodos. Let's set this rumor straight. From Snopes.com, claim, in the film Aladdin, the hero whispers, "Good teenagers, take off your clothes." Status, false. Origins. This quip occurs during a scene on a balcony where Jasmine's tiger Raja threatens him and backs him up against the railing. As Raja growls, Aladdin tries to shoo him away with his turban and supposedly whispers, "Good teenagers, take off your clothes." In the Disney script, Aladdin actually says, "Good kitty, take off and go." The "take off your clothes" rumor started soon after Aladdin was released on home video in 1993. The rumor spread by word of mouth during 1994 and was eventually printed in Movie Guide magazine, an Atlanta-based Christian entertainment review. Because it validated a pre-established belief and fear about conspiracy theories and increasing evil in the world, many people soon began to hear what they were being told they should hear. Very similar to the way Beatles fans in search of more Beatles intrigue eagerly sharing, "Paul is dead" or "I buried Paul" clues in the early 1980s. So now you know. And knowing is half of the battle. Sometimes. Hawking out.
Look it up. Read a book.
Yeah, read a book.
Thanks, Obama.
JFK assassination.
Parent.
But he is the one that taught you.
He is the one who has counseled me as bishop, and I have taken his counsel. And this is my interpretation of this paper.
That question.
The question is, are you willing? What do you understand of the following standards? What do you understand about the law of chastity? And he will say, I don't know what that means. And then I'll say, it prohibits any sexual relationship outside of the bonds of legal marriage between a man and a woman. And he's going to look at me with a blank stare because he's not going to know what any of those words. Or he might giggle at sexual because kids hear that word even though we don't teach it at home. It gets heard. Are you willing to obey that? And now he's going to ask me, well, what does that mean? What does that mean? What does this have to do with being married? And that is where I think it becomes harder because now I'm explaining something that the parent should have explained. By posing the question this way, it's the most delicate way I can find to ask the question for that age group that makes it relevant. Unless you can come up with a different example.
Other than the bathing suit one?
Yeah.
Can you improve
I don't know. That's pretty airtight.
on the bathing suit, on the swimsuits?
You could ask them, do you wear underwear?
Why?
Yeah. Or you could say, do you have holes in your underwear? Matt, do you have holes in your underwear?
No way, man.
How do you get your legs through? Hey, Jake, what were you eating under there?
Underwear.
You were eating underwear? See, I'd be a better bishop. I'd have the kids in stitches.
Oh, yeah. I would love that stuff, yeah. That was kind of our... That was our bishop when not growing up. My kid's bishop, basically, our friend. He'd always do the what was it? The Peter Pan joke. What happens when you hit your Peter with a pan or something like that? Anyway, it's something like that. Go ahead.
It's something like Peter the Pan.
No, I think it's in the baptismal interviews. You said, "I hope you're not hitting your Peter with a pan, or anything else,
like your hand."
Yeah. Is that what Han Solo means? Never mind. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because every parent I've talked to, just like you and your wife have taught them, well, no, we wear swimming suits.
Is this the fifth time it's come up now?
Yeah. Well, no, we don't touch. Well, I'm asking you, is there another way to fulfill the requirement?
Well, that's the part I don't agree with. About some kids, maybe if you knew that they were having problems, if the parents knew and they let you know about that. But I would rather honestly not bring that up with them, at least not by another person.
Well, let me change this then. Let's switch that sexual out for word of wisdom. Mom and dad drink beer. Mom and dad like a cup of coffee. So do I not ask that question?
That's kind of different.
It's kind of irrelevant to the kid getting baptized or not.
Right. Like, what? Who cares?
What, you're using the kid to spy on the parents? Is that what?
Right.
I don't see it differently because it's a standard of the church.
That's a principle of the gospel.
Is not the law of chastity a principle of the gospel?
Is not.
I think the is not questions are very much in the general authority cadence.
Yeah.
Yes, but sex education or even just briefly mentioning something about masturbation when they're that young, I don't like it.
How can you teach
I don't like it.
I don't. It's gross.
At all. How can you teach the principles without them understanding the base behind it? And it's not the word masturbation they're taught.
Sure.
The point that I'm trying to get across is you and your wife have already taught them to be modest and to not touch. You're nodding your head. Yes. This is the third time I've asked this.
But why do you have to ask him about that? Because it's on the paper. Why is it on the paper? Because I put it there. Why? Right.
Right. Oh, that's why. It's a standard of the church. That's what sets us apart from most other religion, is our standard on the law of chastity. I'm sorry you don't agree with it. I'm more sorry that you don't understand the reasoning behind all of that. Condescend much?
Yes.
Because in our discussion, I'm getting the feeling you don't.
I'm trying to. That's why I came. I didn't want to be upset and not come. I didn't want to be upset and not come to you about it.
You know what? Thank you.
Yeah, that's what she said.
Because more often when I said to people they stew about it, and it really eats into their souls, and I never get a chance to find out what's going on. How did I offend? My purpose is not to offend anyone on purpose.
Yeah, that's an important distinction he put there.
My purpose is to offend not on purpose. But as the bishop, that part wasn't in there. As the bishop, I was counseled very early on. You're going to offend people just because you're the bishop. I have a mantle I have to wear. And until they release me, I have to fulfill those responsibilities and obligations that I am. Command is not the right word, but I have to do it. Just like you have to take care of your children. Just like you have a biological and parental obligation to your children, I too have that same obligation to my
spiritual. See, no quick retort for that one. I got you. Spiritual.
Just like you have to take care of your children. Oh yeah, from biological. Gotcha. Mm-hmm. Yay, and verily. I'm ready for him to break into scripture. Yea, and verily, I did. Yeah, I can see you or your wife. I can't see you or your wife ever walking away and abandoning your children. Why? Why couldn't you do that? Other people do that. Why do I not see you and your wife doing that? It's because you love them and you care for them and you're concerned for them. It's the same feelings that Bishop has towards the ward members. And I would rather offend people by cutting to the point than being guilty of not doing the duty or saying the things, because when I meet him, I want to be able to say, I did my best. I followed what I was asked to do to the best of my ability. And for those places I fell, please forgive me. This is an easy one. In fact, I'm actually really surprised how far this has gotten, because I've usually been able to explain to other parents to the point where they see that it's a valid question. And the way I've approached it in the proper way that you have.
Wait.
The
paper that you.
Yeah, and that I've approached it in the paper that you have is least embarrassing for me, least intrusive for that child, and gives the parents the maximum opportunity to go with it how they will.
That was a good 3 pattern.
All right, Jake, are you Bishop and Glenn?
I'm glad that the grace of Christ pops in to forgive the bishop for offending people for being an asshole.
Yes,
I mean, I wish that it was there for the child that dies in a car accident, or for the parents that don't teach the children about the holy swimsuit analogy. But at least it's there to catch the bishop when he falls.
If he offends,
if he
offends, yeah.
In which case an apology is forthcoming.
Yes.
If he offends. Okay.
So you want me to take over, Matt?
Yeah, we swapping out. Are you?
Okay. I'll be the bishop. Let me get you.
I thought Jake's bishop. Jake hasn't been bishop, has he?
I was bishop there for a little while.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
All right. Okay.
So what do you want to do? I don't know what to do. I don't want to take bishop away from you, Jake. I don't want to be overly eager to be the bishop.
Let's wrap this shit up.
Okay. Let me give you a piece of paper. This is Robert Sowers to contact, and his number, he's the stake executive secretary. Just call him. He'll make an appointment. You can be sure that I will be called by the stake president, and he'll discuss with me what you discussed with him, and he'll tell me the resolution. But if you feel comfortable after you hear from him, you can come talk to me. Just know that I will be called back to talk to him about it, because if one member of the stake has a concern, then all bishops will hear about that concern.
Okay, I think this is a not so subtle way of saying you want to inconvenience a bunch of people. Yeah. Go ahead and file this little problem.
Yeah, and don't think that I'm not going to find out what you tell the stake president, because we talk.
Yeah, Okay.
Yeah, and if they redirect, I will comply with what they say. It may become harsher. He may say, Bishop, you're not carrying the intent far enough.
I love that. That's so great.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you think it's bad now? You go tell the bishop,
right?
And Pat will tell.
Yeah.
It could get worse.
Like seriously
worse.
Okay.
Okay, so wait a minute, right here. So we've got Robert Sowers. He was the executive secretary, and this is apparently North
Ogden in 2013.
So if anyone in 2013 can get us in contact with Robert, someone who would know what state.
Nobody in 2013 is going to be able to hear this, Matt, because we're recording it in 2016.
Goddamn time.
But
I'm saying,
again. No, check it out. Somebody in 2016 might have actually existed in 2013.
Again, we can't apply today's standards.
So North Ogden, Utah, Robert Sowers, executive secretary, hit the infants up. That'd be interesting.
And then we'll have like the closing outro from this episode is, "Hi, I'm Robert Sowers. I used to be
I was the executive secretary of the North Ogden stake." Yeah, that's great.
I like to time travel when listening to Infants on Thrones.
I mean, you're doing that now, right?
Yeah. Okay. Where are we?
There you have it.
Okay, just so you know. Oh wait. There you have it. Know that I will bring it up to the stake president and say that you have a concern with this and that you're choosing to not have the interview come forward because of. Go ahead, Matt.
That's great. Go ahead. Talk to the bishop. Or talk to the stake president. Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm going to talk to him too.
You know, I'm going to talk to him before. Yeah. I'm going to tell him what's going on.
I'm going to tell him too.
You've got a problem.
Yeah, I'm going to let him know. So don't go copying your wife's misrepresentative habits, because you probably suck too. So I'm going to tell him. Just know that you're not going to be doing this in a vacuum of me.
We call that drawing the sting.
Okay, and I'll give him a copy of my letter and say, "Stake President, do I need to change this?" I have the actual. All the bishops have a meeting with him next Tuesday at 7, so I'll bring that forward and make sure that I'm still following the directions that I've been giving. Are you comfortable with that?
That's fine.
Okay, so just so you know, it's not blank who's doing this out of something. It's not just me who's doing this out of whatever.
I understand that.
And if I don't have to ask those questions, I'm more comfortable not asking them.
Okay.
Is there anything else I can do for you?
That's it.
Okay. I do appreciate you coming and talking to me, and I know I've done a lot of the talking because since your wife came in, I've thought about this a real lot. And so I don't want what I do as bishop to impact your family, your future, your activity in the church, whatever you have. The church doctrine, the teachings of our Savior, is the most important thing, and you guys are doing your best to teach your family, and I applaud you. It's not easy going around teaching kids.
Bullshit.
And I recognize that you guys are choosing a harder path because you want what's best for your kid. It's not to do the homeschooling thing they're talking about here. I can't fault that. You're doing a great effort. It's hard. I've watched the Hamptons. I've watched other families, the Youngs who moved out. They chose to homeschool their children.
Yeah.
It's not easy. You're the staff. The kids who are homeschooled actually do extremely well.
That's what attracted us to it.
So just don't be upset with church policy. It's just the way that things are. So
sorry. It's just the way things are. So that's fantastic.
And just to be clear, the questions about the touching themselves aren't on the piece of paper.
Right.
Yeah.
So when he keeps waving the piece of paper and saying, "I'm going to bring this piece of paper to the stake president," the thing that he has an issue with is what he is adding to the paper.
Yeah.
Right.
If he actually just read the paper, it would be fine.
Although the parent earlier did say no, that would be worse. He conceded that point. Which
no. But on the paper it talks about like the swimsuit analogy. But it
does on the paper.
Yeah, I think on the paper.
I don't think it does. I think the paper is that law of chastity, sex within the bounds of marriage.
Right. Yeah.
Those are the questions that he asked, and he's like, no, they wouldn't understand that.
No.
So what I do is swimsuit.
No, the paper is a letter that he sends to all of the kids that are getting ready to be interviewed for a baptismal interview.
Yeah, you're right.
And he's already doctored
When in doubt,
the
ask
official,
Glenn.
right? When in doubt, ask Glenn. See, so I think what came up earlier is that the swimsuit analogy is on the paper, but what he says to them is, "Don't touch or be touched in that area," and that's not written on the paper.
That's not on there.
Yeah,
right. But he says it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
so
right.
when he's waving the paper around and saying, "Oh, well, I'll double check," but I'll ask stake president. I'm just doing what he told us to do.
Right,
because
it's not. It's he's choosing to add things to that paper.
Living prophet, apostle, stake president, bishop. His fucking questions.
Yeah,
it's a line of authority, Jake.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Are you okay?
Yeah, we'll think about it, pray about it. We're not going to make any rash decisions.
That's good. And he doesn't turn 8 till
the end of the month.
See, this is a you're going to get to a key point, but this is either a plant. This is a non-believer. This is a guy who is not baptizing their kid and is kind of doing this to go out. I think it's an exmo that did this, and because it just doesn't seem like a real believer. These homeschooling guys that homeschool their kids that are really close to the church that are going to be like, well, we'll think about it whether or not he's going to get baptized. No way.
Right. Yeah.
There's something else there.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. So we're all rooting for you. We want your family to be a celestial, eternal family again. If we as parents could take care of that without a church organization, the Lord would have set it up that way because, but in society today, organized church, we can't. So,
all right.
I go around appointing and disappointing people with bishop stuff.
Well, wait a minute. Sorry, that the celestial family again, does that tell you that one of them's either been X'd or something else? I mean, what does that mean? We're rooting for you. We want you to be a celestial family again. Or is he just saying,
we want you to all get to the celestial kingdom?
We want you to, when you die, we want your kid to be there and not baptized in a car accident. Do you think
I think he's saying you guys were together in the pre-existence as a family unit, and we want you to be together in the eternities again. I think that's what he's saying.
Yeah, that's what I got from it.
All right.
I go around appointing and disappointing people with bishop stuff, and I can convey to her my apology if I offended her. That was not the intent. Do you have anything else to say?
I think that's it. I appreciate you talking to me.
Oh, this is the easy stuff. When parents come to me, and this is said quietly, when parents come to me and say, what do we do if we don't want to come to church anymore? What do I do? If we don't come to church anymore, what do we do? And that's what Satan's for. You have a cute family. The boys will be obnoxious and rambunctious, and the Lord compensates our efforts for that. And I can say that because I've got 4 boys.
Right.
And I was the naughty one in our family. I was the one crawling on the benches, over the benches, yelling and screaming.
All right. Well, thank you.
I'm curious, if you can come up with an easier way for me to fill this and still get it across, I'm open to suggestions.
Okay.
But in talking,
and by the way, that was delivered with not as an invitation. It was really condescension. Like I think I've reached the pinnacle of explaining with this whole swimsuit thing. So good luck coming up with it. But welcome to you to try.
Yeah,
that was really how it was delivered.
But in talking with other bishops, they said, "Wow, you've actually found a delicate way to ask the questions to approach it, so that if there's no problem if it comes out."
Right.
And I hate the way society is now because it's forcing our hand. It's not me. It's this fucking society.
Yeah, it makes us sad that it has to be like that.
Yeah. The stake president spent 2 hours in a room, and that's what he gave us, the assignment for the talk next week for bishops. And you need to recognize that Satan has stepped up his war efforts. We haven't stepped up our defense. Yeah, I'm actually really worried about how I'm supposed to cover, how I'm supposed to teach parents about masturbation, about the pornography, about all the things that are going on that our age and older refuse to accept because it's so foreign to us.
Oh, so that right there, I think this dude is earnest, but the idea of a war, we're stepping up our defenses and the battle is on for the souls of this generation, and those of us in our age don't even understand it. The stakes. I mean, he is just spitting, on a soapbox, and he is buying his own bullshit. He is just impassioned by this, man, and that's scary because he actually believes it.
And Jake's doing a great performance because Jake, at this point, it's like 1 a.m. He's just ready to be done. And the guy who's sitting in this interview, he just wants to get out of that fucking room. And the bishop's like, oh, and I just want to reiterate everything that I told you before, just so that on a leaving note, you understand why I'm doing this and that there's no other choice.
How great
it's Satan's fault. It's Satan's fault. Damn Satan.
Right.
Damn that devil. Yeah, there's bishops who talk to me that the parents were so naive. No. Oh, okay, wait. I'm going to go back up. It's actually...
It's actively discussed. I mean,
it's actively discussed and talked about in music, in the movies, and in the gym. Society teaches it's all fine and okay.
Sorry.
And,
in the gym? What the hell does he mean in the gym?
Well, that's where he sees the guy showering and he thinks about masturbating.
See, that's the thing is like this guy, it's clear that he sees sex in places. Yeah, everywhere, right? He's like, they're coming out of that font and those clothes are sticking to them. Their little nips are sticking out straight.
No, you're right. Yoga pants, right? Yoga pants and all this scantily clad. I think you're right, dude. Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah,
right.
he's
locked in.
Sex and everything in kids' cartoons. They're just jumping around.
Daisy Duck doesn't even wear pants.
Right.
In my day, it was just Josie and the Pussycats, and I didn't even know what any of those words meant.
Right.
Okay. In the gym, society teaches it's all fine and okay, but if I'm hard forcing their hand to repairs to address that a little bit earlier, I'm not going to apologize because I don't think it's too young at 8. And I keep referring back to that parent who came to us with just your concerns and then came back 6 months later. I found out that some things were happening that they didn't know about. And their tone was much different.
He wants the car accident to happen. He wants somebody to confess to molestation. He wants that vindication. I mean, look how he tastes it.
But he just also wants to get this parent to do what he's saying, to conform.
Yeah,
conform. There's all the scary things out there. They're going to get you if you don't conform.
And everything that this man thinks is so black and white, and it boggles his mind that other people don't just immediately grasp on what he says. That's his worldview.
Yeah.
Right. I'm sure.
And I hope that you don't have to experience that.
Right.
But there's bishops who talk to me that the parents were so naive, they wouldn't talk about it, they wouldn't discuss it. Their child is now engrossed in horrible addictions. That's the only word that I can think of, addictions, that child can't get out of. And now the parents are becoming aware of it, and they can't deal with it.
This kid's just whacking it.
Yeah,
right.
Mentally, they just can't understand.
Calloused. It got pretty far.
It did, and that child will probably never. How do I put it? Will never go through the rest of their life without the chains of addiction tugging on them one way or another.
Tugging.
I know.
This is where you start thinking this is parody, dude.
Right.
Sigh. I don't know what else to say. I hear that poor bishop, and I just think I don't want to have any of that going on. I've got enough problems already without it that severe. So
he's not talking about something he experienced as a bishop. He's again talking about another bishop told him this story.
Yeah.
That he's using.
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Well, and think about it. He says, "I hear that poor bishop." Like he's
not poor bishop.
Yeah, I've got enough problems as bishop of this ward without it being that severe, and I don't need more problems. So keep up your good work. Be the good dad. Have your wife be the good wife.
Have your wife.
I hope everything goes fine. But it's like you buy insurance, not because you know the house is going to burn down. It's because if it's going to burn down.
Back to the car accident.
Yeah.
Right.
You just got to prepare. Thanks. And I'll see you next Sunday in priesthood. The library will be closed.
It is?
Yeah, I want you guys in there. If you're wondering why my concerns are, it's because this is a stake directive.
Okay.
Take care. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Yeah, because there was something earlier where he was like,
I've been asked to speak.
Yeah, and the library's going to be closed, so you can't be in there during third hour. And he's like, oh, really? I can't? Yeah, so no hiding out in the library during third hour. I need you in this place.
Yeah, so he knows.
Okay.
He knows.
So,
he just hangs out in the library,
Yeah.
right?
So, yeah, I think it's kind of that's lining up with your theory, Matt.
It's all this
about
double speak of,
Yeah.
like none of them are, it's the passive aggressive. It's just so passive.
Yeah.
Like everything's passive aggressive and veiled threats and
veiled.
innuendos.
I don't even think they're veiled.
Yeah.
I hope that doesn't happen. But.
Yeah.
No, but you're right. What guys hang out in the library? It's the non-believers, man. I'm saying these guys are on their way out. So, hey, parent here, now that maybe you're even a listener, let us know.
Yeah, I'd love to have a follow-up.
I mean, really, nobody records these types of meetings, man.
Yeah, you would never record this meeting unless you were...
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe not you would never.
No, but if
way more likely.
if you really respected your bishop...
Right. Do you know that...
Are we still going? Aren't we done?
Yeah, we should be done.
I believe there's a living prophet. I believe the living prophets advise apostles. I believe that apostles advise stake presidents. And I believe that stake presidents advise bishops. And I believe bishops advise Elders Quorum presidents, high priest group leaders, new site presidents. And that's the chain of how the Lord organizes his church.
Express yourself, don't repress yourself. Express yourself, don't repress yourself. And I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry. It's human nature. It's human nature. And I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry. I'm not your bitch. Don't hang your shit on me.
Hi, I'm Bobby Showers, definitely not a former LDS executive secretary from North Ogden, Utah, named Robert Showers, who now lives in South Carolina in the Witness Protection Program. And I like to peek through Venetian blinds while listening to Infants on Thrones. You can comment on this episode on the website at... Yeah, sorry, you gotta go.
Oops, I didn't know we could talk about sex. I must have been crazy. Did I stay too long? Oops, I didn't know I could speak my mind. What was I thinking? And I'm not sorry.
The letter that I send out a year before they go on a mission... Have you ever had any touchings of a girl? Have you ever dated a girl? Have you ever felt any homosexual tendency? Have you ever masturbated at all ever in your life? Have you ever seen pornography ever in your life? Okay, these are 17, 18-year-olds who are being asked these questions that were only asked when I was going in for a marriage interview.
Right.
So it's shifted down.
I'm going to tap in on Bishop.
What's that?
Okay.
Oh,
I'm tapping in as Bishop.
Okay.
All right. So it shifted down. So if you don't feel comfortable with me asking those questions, that's your choice. I think you're making a mistake by delaying baptism. Heaven forbid. Oh, I didn't mean to steal this, Glenn, from you.
That's okay. No, you can do it.
No, I really didn't. No. Now I feel bad.
No, go for it.
I really just jumped in spontaneously, and now
you wanted to skip this whole part anyway.
No, I'm back. This is when I come back in on, so it shifted down.
It's you.
Oh, man, I really do feel bad.
I don't care.
I think you're making a mistake by delaying baptism. Heaven forbid he should be killed in a car accident. That's something you should have to deal with.
I wanted to read that.
Dude, it would have been funnier if I did that intentionally. I so didn't, and now I genuinely feel bad.
Yeah.
Just act like you did, and we'll have a good time.
Ha ha! I did that on purpose.
Why don't you just deal with it? 'Cause I'm not sorry. Would you like me better if I was? It's human nature. It's human nature. And I'm not sorry.
Thank you for listening to Infants on Thrones.